Recording in progress.
Please rise as you're able for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag, the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome everybody to the May 19th, 2025 City Council meeting. We begin every meeting with the open comment period. This is an opportunity for anyone from the public to speak on items on which we will not be taking public testimony during a public hearing later in the agenda. Each person has up to 2 minutes to speak for a total of 20 minutes. I will be keeping track of time through a few methods. First, the timer clock up here, the one in red, and then the stoplight here. And so please know that I may need to cut you off. Because of the limited time, we want to be sure that others have an opportunity to speak. And I'd also request that each speaker be concise to allow more people to speak during the designated time. Participants are further encouraged to limit comments generally to topics that are within the scope and jurisdiction of the council's ability to affect policy. Council members and staff do not respond to your comments during public comment, but will instead follow up on any specific requests separately. If you have any materials to share with the council, you may give them to the city clerk's office over here to distribute. And at this time, you will be invited up to speak in the order of which you signed up. First on our list is Tom Schmidt. Welcome, and you have 2 minutes. Tim, I'm sorry.
Hit a button until it turns green. There you got
Okay.
it.
Better? Okay.
Yes.
All right. I'd like to thank the council for allowing the opportunity to speak. Specifically, I'd like to reference agenda item number F8, which is a request for an extension of travel budget by some of the council members. I would ask that this item be given next consideration. The council members are given a budget for the travel, and asking for an extension is going over the budget, and city departments and all of us, we can't go over budgets, so ask the council kind of as a leadership role, so keep themselves within the budget, and as such, poll F8 discussion, hopefully denial, and as a way of kind of enforcing discipline in terms of budget manager that's something the council members can do personally. All right, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next up, we have Loris Mortensen. I probably messed up your first name there. Larissa.
Okay.
I think it's already on.
All right. All right. Good evening, City Council. I'm a member of 319, and I'm here in support of my part-time library coworkers, as well as the community who relies on these services that the same coworkers work hard to provide. As a reminder from the last open comment period, it has been projected that the library will be over budget in their part-time hours, which jeopardizes these city workers' total hours and their jobs as a whole. These are people who every day are working hard to get the books and other materials in the hands of library users, community members, and your constituents. They are integral to library operations, and losing them would be felt. We are a community with many diverse backgrounds. The city workforce should also reflect this diversity. Many folks who are most at risk of their hours being disrupted are people with disabilities, people with 2S LGBTQI+ identities, and people of color. Losing their perspectives and labor will not help make the city more welcoming to all. Finally, at a time when our community wants more from the library and when the city considers itself a community-focused organization, I feel strongly that allowing these hours to be cut is not the solution. Part-time hours are vital, and I want solutions that allow the city to help the community more and not less. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next up, we have Linda Smith.
Hello. Okay, I was here last month talking about the parking meters. So they switched them, they were 60 minutes, I think it was, or no, it was 30 minutes. Well, now they've switched them to 3 hours. 3 hours, way too much. Especially now, there's all that construction they're doing, they're parking in front of our businesses. Like the people that are Nicholson Painting, I went and talked to him and he said, well, if they park in the Marriott parking ramp, he's gonna charge them $30 a day. I said, yeah, but these are for our customers, not for, working for businesses downtown. And that's only, I've been down here 24 years and never seen, people are so unhappy. People that come here from all over the world. I got people that I sell glasses to, from the other country, and they said they've never seen a city change so much. And there's nothing for them to do between their appointments, and they are very, very unhappy. And, and everywhere we go, there's, construction and nowhere to park. It's just, I love being downtown, but, are they trying to get us businesses to go out of downtown? It just doesn't make any sense. They just, and then I got to show people how to use the meters, how to put their money in. They come and ask me if I have change. Don't you think 3 hours is too much? People that are working downtown, all they got to do is come and put more money in, and then they can go back to work. I pay $182 for parking in. It started out at $77 24 years ago, but now it's $182 a month for my parking spot. But I love Mayo Clinic, and I love everything, but this year, things are not good. And they tell me that they're going to go for another 5 years before it's going to be able to, have, everything done.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Thanks.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Michael Wojak.
Good evening, council members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm actually here as part of my role in coordinating the Med City Meander, which will be going on this next weekend. It's our second year of doing the event. We had about 800 folks show up the first year, and we're expecting a similar turnout. It really does a great job of showcasing the community in its best light. And what I really wanted to point out is you might have heard a rumor there's some construction going on around town. And we had to deal with no less than like eight to 10 different obstacles and detours. I was stressing out a little bit because all 3 underpasses of US 14 happened to be closed simultaneously a few days ago. And just working throughout the process with your team, I just want to commend them on the good work that they did in trying to come up with a route. And we did come up with a route that we're going to be able to keep people safe. It's not as scenic as sometimes we would like, but it's going to work out. And in particular, I'd like to recognize Kelly Peterson from the Public Works Department and Ben Bolt from Parks. It's just really going the extra mile to make sure that our folks are going to enjoy the event. We're going to show the city in its best possible light, and folks are going to be safe. And I think that having folks feel safe on their bicycle and learning how to get around the community is especially valuable now when it's just a great alternative to driving into the downtown. So I wanted to recognize the teammates since I was here for other stuff anyways, and thank you for all the support for the event.
Thank you. Next up, we have Mr. Stack, who unfortunately I cannot allow you to speak today because you spoke at our last council meeting. So I apologize for that. And next up is Audrey Gomez.
I'm Adri Gomez, representing ATU. These are words from a driver that quit on Friday. How would you like to do everything you were trained to do? To set up for a turn, be out in the intersection blocking the eastbound lane, get clipped by an angry driver, driving too fast for conditions from the east in the westbound lane, clip my bike rack, get out of his vehicle and say hurtful things, have to bite your tongue because you're a public sector employee who has to remain professional, have managers come on the scene to tell me and the officer it was my fault. Tell the other driver, don't worry, it was our driver's fault. We have very good insurance and everything will be paid for. Get a citation for failure to yield to oncoming traffic and get escorted in for a drug and alcohol test without a full and thorough investigation. The same statute that he was cited for has wording in it to protect what he was trained to do so, and he did. We have got to get back to working together to get the routes covered. They need to bring our union representative back. It's the only way the drivers are going to feel comfortable and safe a little, I guess, with this company to work. They're not even getting paid. We're not getting paid our overtime. Nobody wants to step up. We need our union representative back. We can help to accomplish successful and reliable transportation. We can help. Please just let us help you. We know the drill. Just let us help you, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gomez. That concludes our public comment period. Moving on to to call the order. I will call the meeting to order and ask Clerk Kasel to call the roll.
Good evening. Councilmember Keen,
Here.
Councilmember Miller, Councilmember Wall, Councilmember Fredericks.
Here.
Councilmember Palmer,
Here.
Councilmember Doring,
Here.
Council President Schubring.
Here. Moving on to our administrator's report, Deputy Administrator Parrish has incorporated a few items into the mayor's report, so we'll move on to the acting mayor's report, and Mayor Norton has provided me with a few items to share this evening. So first up, the Southeast Minnesota Peace Officers Memorial Program is taking place right now, this evening at 6 p.m. at Christ United Methodist Church. The memorial program is the first program at the new memorial site at Soldiers Field. The program is the last in a series of events and activities in recognition of National Police Week and National National Peace Officers Memorial Day, which was May 15th, a time to honor law enforcement officers who have lost their lives in the line of duty for the safety and protection of others. You may have noticed the flags lining the entrance of the Rochester Police Department, which served as a reminder of this special week. We also want to recognize, before the captain here, we want to recognize and pay special tribute to the officers that Rochester has lost in the line of duty over the years. They include Reserve Officer William Freitag, Officer Eugene Sutton, Sergeant Lloyd Find, and Officer Floyd Halley, who all died while serving the Rochester community. Next up, we have Captain Jennifer Hodgman. Congratulations are in order to Captain Hodgman from the Rochester Police Department. She recently became the first woman at RPD promoted to captain and is now leading the Community Services Division, which is dedicated to fostering relationships in the community to solve problems and reduce crime. Captain Hodgman also recently graduated from the highly selective FBI National Academy in Quantico, Virginia. The 10-week academy focuses on advanced communication, leadership, and fitness training. Captain Hodgman is one of only a few from RPD and the first woman from RPD to graduate from this elite academy. And unfortunately, I don't think Captain Hodgman is here tonight, but congratulations are in order. Next up, we have this May, city celebrates the contributions of our community development, public works, and historic preservation teams. During Building Safety Month, we recognize those who ensure our homes and workplaces are safe, efficient, and accessible. Historic Preservation Month honors those who protect Rochester's historic places and foster community through the power of place. And during National Public Works Week, we thank the team who maintain the infrastructure that keep our city running. To mark these occasions, the city dome light was green on May 14th and will shine orange on May 21st and maroon on May 30th. And next up, May 4th through 10th, we celebrated Municipal Clerks Week. So congratulations to Clerk Kasel and her team over here. And finally, on the acting mayor's report, the mayor wants to remind members of the community that we have 2 vacancies on the Board of Appeals that she has recommendations to fill, and one recommendation for a commissioner slot on the Historic Preservation Commission, and 2 park board positions, one for Ward 3 and Ward 4. And that concludes the acting mayor's report. I keep saying acting mayor because I don't get to do that very often, so. Moving on to the order of the agenda. Are there any changes to the order of the agenda? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the order of the agenda?
So move.
Moved by Councilmember Wall,
Second.
seconded by Councilmember Miller. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion carries. Moving on to our consent agenda, I have 2 pulled items from tonight's consent agenda. Councilmember Palmer has pulled items F7 and F8. Are there any other pulled items? Seeing none, I'd invite a motion to approve in block items F1 through F6 and F9 through F21.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Fredericks.
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Keen. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion carries. Moving on to our public hearings. We have 3 public hearings on our agenda this evening. And before I begin the public hearings, I just want to take a moment to clarify the process by which each hearing will happen. First, staff will make a presentation. And then if there is an applicant or applicant representative, they will have up to 10 minutes to discuss their application. And then after that, I will open the public hearing. Public comment during public hearings are limited to 5 minutes each. And again, encourage members of the public to keep comments brief, concise, and not necessarily building on previous comments. And at that point, once everyone has their opportunity to speak, we will invite the applicant back up for a rebuttal. And then after that, council members will have an opportunity to ask questions of staff and the applicant. And then we will move on to a motion. So with that, we will, and there's a little bit of a change here. We have items G1 and G2, which are related to the same application. So we will hold 1 public hearing for items G2, but council members, we will take 2 votes on those items. So with that, I will turn it over to Community Development's Edward Caples to discuss the major land subdivision by North Rock Real Estate.
Council President, members of the council, Good evening. My name is Ed Caples with Community Development, and tonight I'll be presenting items G1 and G2. Item G1 is the first step in the process to subdivide 33.56 acres into 84 residential lots and 2 outlots. The development will take access from 50th Avenue and Valley High Drive. Community Development recommends approval with 10 conditions. Item G2 is the annexation of the previously mentioned 33.56 acres. The site has an underlying land use of medium-density residential along Valley High Road northwest and low-density residential to the north. Upon annexation of the property, it will be zoned R2 and R3 in accordance with the underlying land use. The Planning Commission recommends approval of both items. I'm here to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Any questions at this point? If not, I will invite the applicant up to discuss the application. And please reference both items, G1 and G2, and you have 10 minutes.
Okay, all right. Good evening, Council President, council members. I'm Jeff Brown with North Rock Real Estate. I'm working on the major land subdivision and the annexation here. On both applications, we agree with the conditions set forth by the planning department and are here to answer any questions that you may have. So pretty straightforward.
All right, we'll invite you back after the public hearing. At this point, I will open the public hearing. Is there anyone here who wishes to be heard on items G1 and G2? This is a public hearing. Anyone wishing to be heard on this item, please step forward. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and invite the applicant back up for any closing comments that you may have.
No closing comments. We're just, we've been active in this area for a while and recently acquired this project. You know, we're following the land use plan that was set forth for this property in 2022. And we're just looking forward to bringing more residential lots to the market initially, and then have the 2 outlots for potential commercial or higher density residential down the road. So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Questions, council members? Councilmember Keen.
Question for staff. I'm just procedurally, we're going to do the land subdivision prior to the annexation. Can you just talk about why we would do them in the other order, or is there a good reason here?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. The major land subdivision is really just the first step in the subdivision process. So it doesn't necessarily need to be within city limits. Once you get to the final plat, then the property would actually need to be within city limits because you're actually subdividing the property. This is more just a procedural step based on Minnesota state statute.
Okay, and so when we are here as a city council approving G1, it's really the county that's going to update that, the formal legal documents of what is the property being subdivided?
The subdivision process is a 2-step process, the major land subdivision and then the final plat. The major land subdivision is just more conceptual in nature. Once you get to the final plat process, that's actually when you're recording the plat and actually creating the lots.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Council members, you may be seated.
Thank you.
Is there a motion on item G1? Oh, I'm sorry. Councilmember Palmer, go ahead.
I'll make a motion.
Moved by Councilmember Palmer,
Second.
seconded by Councilmember Fredericks. Any further discussion? Councilmember Palmer, go ahead.
With the 10 conditions.
With the 10 conditions. Seeing no further comment. Oh, Councilmember Wall, go ahead.
I commend North Rock Real Estate on, again, a very good project. I was at the neighborhood information meeting and the only one that represented the public. I think that speaks of the trust that the community has in North Rock. And they were kind enough to go through their entire presentation, even though I was the only one. And I even poured it in from elsewhere. So thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Councilmember. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion passes. Is there a motion on item G2, the annexation?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Palmer,
Second.
seconded by Councilmember Doring. Any further discussions? Councilmember Keen.
Just a point of order that it is a 2-part motion.
The
Yeah.
G2 is.
G2, yeah. Again, it's understood, but I just wanted to say it for the record.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to item G3, which is a municipal consent hearing for the Broadway Avenue South Trunk Highway 14 intersection improvement project. And this will be presented by Mr. Dombrowski.
Good evening, Council President, members of the council. We're here tonight. This is something a bit unique. We don't do this very frequently to conduct a municipal consent hearing for a MnDOT project within the city limits. The reasoning for tonight's consent hearing is due to a change in access for the proposed project, which is occurring at First Avenue Southeast. Currently, there's a two-way access. You can get in and out off the highway at First Avenue. The project will change that to a one-way northbound, so you can get off the highway onto First Avenue, but you cannot exit back onto the highway. That's one of the major crash locations over the years. So part of the project includes cleaning that up, but the project also includes a number of other improvements as we think about complete streets and connecting people walking and biking in and around this area and creating a much safer intersection. So we've been working with MnDOT for approximately 2 years on this more detailed design layout. However, it goes back over 5 years as we started to think about what this intersection could improve to when we began partnering with MnDOT. So tonight, we met with each of you in some briefing sessions in the last month or so to just kind of lay out this process and share where we're at with the project and the proposed improvements. And tonight is obviously the municipal consent hearing where MnDOT will act similar to an applicant like any other public hearing. They're going to provide a more detailed presentation, and then obviously we'll have you open up the public hearing, and myself and the MnDOT team will be available for questions afterward. And again, tonight is really, you wouldn't have to take action tonight, but if you do take action on the layout, it's an approve or disapprove. You can't make changes, so you can't, present changes to your fellow council members and motions. It's really just the layout as presented, as well as there's options for if you don't take action, as I laid out in the narrative, action needs to occur within 90 days of this evening's hearing. Otherwise, if no action is taken, the layout is adopted. So we'll talk through that as you have questions after we move through the hearing, but first we'll let MnDOT make their presentation. So Tom Austin is here. He's the MnDOT project manager. Cindy Morgan is also here from the MnDOT team, and we should have the slide deck loaded. Yep. Thank you.
Are we ready to go with the slide deck? Yes. Okay. All right. Go ahead, and you have 10 minutes.
Sounds good. So just help me get a start on this here.
There you go.
Oh, there we go. Perfect. All right. Well, okay. So super. Thank you, Council, for having us here tonight and allowing us to present. I just wanted to say a quick introduction, maybe a quick comment is I'm not probably going to get through my whole presentation with 10 minutes, but that's okay. We'll get back to some of the details too. But I just want to say thank you. And we're really here tonight in a very formal process, municipal consent. But I'd like to think that we'd be having this conversation, and we would be having this conversation regardless of whether we're not. We have municipal consent because, as Dylan pointed out, this has really been a collaborative effort since day one. This isn't MnDOT's project, MnDOT saying you're going to do this or you're going to do that. We've worked very closely with Dylan and the engineering staff in Rochester to find what we think is a good project that meets many different needs, as well as the stakeholders and the businesses and the community at large. So with that said, thank you again for allowing me to be here. There we go. So I've got a quick agenda here. My name is Tom Austin. I'm the project manager with MnDOT. Municipal consent process, a little bit of the history. We'll talk about some project costs. If we have some time, we'll look at some of the layout, and then we'll look at the schedule, and then go through some quick questions, some question time. So the definition is up on the screen. It's a statute requirement. What kicks off, as Dylan mentioned, is a change in access. If the project increases or decreases the number of through lanes, in other words, increases or decreases the capacity of the highway, we need to come for municipal consent, or if the project requires a permanent right-of-way acquisition. So as Dylan mentioned, we're here tonight because of the access, and we'll just keep going. No. It's kind of a
It's
little
very
delayed.
sensitive.
It's a little delayed.
Very
I get
sensitive.
extra 2 minutes, okay?
You have actually 10 minutes. So. And then you will have 5 minutes after the public hearing as well. So.
All right, so on March 24th, we give a formal request to the city for approval of the layout, and that was done on March 24th. Within 60 days, we need to have this hearing that we're here tonight to do on the 19th of May. And then, as Dylan mentioned, within 90 days, the city either needs to pass a resolution approving, disapproving, or doing nothing. So by August 17th, we'll have a decision one way or another. What comes out of this is if the city council approves it, we're good to go. We move into final design. If the city disapproves, we have a few different options. We could meet city conditions if there's something that we could do to accommodate. We could go through an appeals process that MnDOT has, or we can just go do another project somewhere else because there's a lot of needs. So that's an option as well. The city can take no action, and like Dylan said, after 90 days, the project becomes approved. So just in case we don't know where we are, we're on 14 and Broadway there at right in the, wow, it's going all by itself now. Okay, project history, real quick. Pavement condition is an issue that we're seeing. Why are we here? Pavement condition, last overlay was in 2011. The pavement is in poor condition. We all know that from driving on it. The other issue is we have a 40-year-old signal out there. In 1985, the existing traffic signal was put in. It's at the end of its life. It's obsolete. It needs replacement. Intersection design. That intersection at 14 and Broadway was designed in the 50s and built in 1960. It's a high-speed rural design. It's terrible. That's what we're seeing, those big sweeping right turns. And as we see in the safety data, there's 152 crashes in the last 10 years at that intersection. Most all of them are associated with those sweeping right turns, the mounds, and we've seen 1 pedestrian crash and I think 4 bike crashes. And that's really more indicative of the fact that in the next note there is that the complete streets approach is needed. The existing pedestrian facilities are inadequate. There's limited access. There's limited opportunities to cross. There's only 2 marked crossings of Broadway and 14. And then the last thing is that the city will have some upgrades that'll happen on Broadway with water main replacement as well. So you sure can. Thank you. There we go. So quick project development history. As I mentioned, this has been a collaborative effort. This kind of snakes through back in July of 2019 was really the beginning of the scoping effort for the current project. And we have had dozens of meetings with the community stakeholders, the city, and various advocacy groups trying to find and listen to what the needs of the community are, the needs of the roadway. And I won't go through all those details, but I do have some more information on that if you're interested that goes through comprehensively some of that engagement. This is just what we learned as we did a survey on the project. Most people view the current intersection negatively, and yet we found that most people view the proposed design favorably. And that is really across all modes of transportation. There's a lot of information on that chart, but what it's telling us is if you look at the overall first column there, there's 2 columns of information, negative. Currently, 59% view the current design unfavorably, while proposed is viewed negatively by only 26%. So then if you look at it from a positive standpoint, 27% of the overall people view the intersection positively, while 43% view the intersection positively as what's proposed. So, and then that's just through all the various modes of transportation. And we see that across all modes. Now we're not, everybody's not jumping up and down and saying we got everything that we wanted, but what it does tell you is that most people are satisfied with the design. This is going through what we heard as we did that engagement and what we did. So MnDOT went out and we actually listened to the community and we responded by adjusting our design based on what we learned. What we heard right out of the gate was get rid of those mounds, get rid of those free rights, those big sweeping free rights. So we designed smart channels and we'll look at them more when we look at the layout. What we heard from multiple people in the public was that existing left turns on Highway 14 are inadequate. We're seeing backups that back up into the through lanes, creating an unsafe condition. So we've added dual left turns, and we'll dig into that more in a minute to help address that. Slower speeds. We went back as a design team and reduced our lane widths to 11 feet to slow that down, to feel constrained. Got rid of the big wide shoulders. We're trying to reduce that roadway width, make it feel slower. We learned that Third Avenue makes it difficult getting into Sunnyside Avenue. One of the first renditions that we had of the design closed that intersection altogether with the cul-de-sac. In engaging with the community, we went back and learned, no, that's not going to work for us. We need access. We found a good balance between providing that mobility and yet addressing the safety issue, which is the exit of First Avenue, trying to cross all those lanes of traffic, jump into the left turn lane and go south on Broadway. That's where the crashes were happening. I think we have a design that helps address that. Connectivity and pedestrians. We did a ton of work with enhancing the pedestrian facilities in the project as well. And then the last one is the crossing distance of the highways, which we'll talk about that. As we reduced those lane widths, got rid of those big shoulders, we really did help to reduce the overall width of the roadway. Project scope, okay, so we're doing a complete reconstruction of Highway 14 from Crossroads to 3rd, from the Crossroads intersection at Hy-Vee to 3rd Avenue, and then from the other Crossroads intersection on Broadway up to 9th Street. And I've got a list of all the things we're doing, but the bottom line is the cost is about $19.5 million for that. Now the city's costs, which is obviously a big part of this conversation, we've got a nice list kind of breaking it all down by different areas, but roughly $5.7 million is what the city's share of that $19.5 million is. In addition to that 5.7, there's an 8% cost on top for engineering, which covers administration, inspection, surveying, and materials, those types of things. So that would be in addition to the 5.7. The other potential cost is for contaminated materials, which is an ongoing investigation that we're having right now. The project team doesn't see that as a huge risk, but there is a potential that if there was contamination on the South Broadway portion of the project, that would be an additional city cost to clean any of that up. So
You've
the
got
layout
1
review.
minute.
1 minute. All right. Well, we won't get through all this, but in 1 minute, let's do a real quick. So the intersection itself, we're designing with what we call smart channels. We're taking those free rights out, bringing them in, making it more of a traditional intersection. And the thing that's really interesting with this is that we're doing raised crosswalks. I think this is the first time on a trunk highway we've done those, accentuating the pedestrian importance of the intersection. That raises those crosswalks. You can kind of see that where it's like a speed table on those right turns. The other thing that I mentioned was the left turn lanes. We're adding an extra left turn lane on Highway 14. That does not add capacity. It's like a pipe that's feeding a garden hose. The amount of water that goes into that pipe is not increased because you have another exit for it, okay? The Highway 14 capacity is not increasing. What's happening, what we're gaining with those left turn lanes is a more efficient intersection, which allows us to give more green time to Broadway, so we don't need dual lefts on Broadway. It allows us to give more green time to the pedestrians, therefore elevating their importance at the intersection to helping it make more safe. Am I running out of time?
Yes, and Mr. Austin, you will have another 5 minutes after the public hearing, so.
Okay, that sounds good.
All right, at this point, I will now open the public hearing, and I will start with the sign-in sheet, and our first speaker is Laurel Podolsky-Smith. And you will have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Council President Schubring, esteemed council members. My name again is Laurel Podolsky-Smith, and I live at 311th Avenue Southwest in the Kutzke Park neighborhood. As you know, I'm also an Olmsted County Commissioner representing District 1. And while the Broadway and Highway 14 intersection is in my district, and I share constituents with many of you, I'm here this evening as a community member who has passed through the intersection countless times, including as a kid on my bike all summer, as a pedestrian, as a bicycle commuter, of course, as a motorist, and as a community leader with increasing concerns about the safety, high speeds, and accessibility of the intersection. Over my lifetime, I've observed the intersection become increasingly dangerous to all who pass through it. As you know, the intersection has seen over 150 vehicle crashes in the past 10 years and is the single most dangerous intersection in the city. I'm concerned about what the next 60 years will look like. We lived with this intersection for 60 years. Do we want a new intersection we can just live with for another 60 years? Or are we ready to prioritize the safety of all people over vehicle speed and traffic flow? Now is the time to do everything we can to maximize safety for pedestrians, children walking to school, elders, families with strollers, walk commuters, wheelchair users, bicyclists, and people who simply require more time to cross an intersection. The Broadway and Highway 14 intersection sits in a dynamic and growing urban area that includes 3 schools: Soldiers Field Park, Graham Park, and future Expo Center, the Farmers Market, the County Fair, the Seneca property, and residential and commercial areas. The proposed intersection redesign is not for today alone. It's for the people who come after us. A future we can and can't imagine, but will certainly look very different from today. I recognize and appreciate many of the safety improvements represented in the proposed redesign, and many concerns remain, chiefly the addition of the second left turn lane. The introduction of a second left turn lane would add about 10 feet to the crossing distance, and it would likely increase vehicle speeds and make crossings more hazardous. On this basis, I urge you to deny municipal consent on the proposed intersection redesign and ask MnDOT to remove the additional left turn lanes. The addition of the second left turn lane is based on MnDOT's 20-year traffic predictions and not necessarily on the realities, priorities, and the future vision of Rochester, which I hope is increasingly walkable, bikeable, accessible, and a livable city. And I thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you. Next up, we have Adam Busby.
Good evening, Adam Busby, representing the representative for the ATU 1005. I'm going to apologize. I'm not as educated on this subject as I usually like to try to be before I come here and speak. However, there are some current concerns with a turn lane that will be dumped right into a future proposed dedicated transit lane. When these projects come to place, we definitely need to think about public transit. We ask our drivers to drive in pretty difficult situations already. We don't need to add to it by dumping a bunch of traffic into a transit lane. It doesn't make any sense, especially for a town that prioritizes public transit. I heard the MnDOT representative speak about community engagement, and on these projects like this, that's going to affect us. I mean, we would appreciate being involved in the conversation. We are the largest transit union in the U.S. and Canada. So that's my spiel. We really need to start paying attention to transit. Let's not make it harder on our drivers. Let's make it easier on them. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Lee Schneider.
Thank you, Council President and council members. My name is Lee Schneider. I commute to work through this intersection by minivan and sometimes bike, and many families, including mine, bike through this intersection to get to our wonderful farmers market. In MnDOT's redesign of this intersection, their stated goals are to reduce crashes and improve pedestrian crossings. The current design does improve some of these crossings, as mentioned, like which we appreciate. However, for people walking or rolling across Highway 14, they have actually made it less safe. The additional left turn lanes will widen the intersection, increasing the car speed through the intersection, making the intersection less safe for people driving, as well as people using the intersection through the crosswalks. And then these unnecessary turn lanes will also increase the cost of the project and the cost of the long-term maintenance. My daughters wanted to ride their bikes to the farmer's market. We are lucky enough to live close to the multi-use path system, and we can ride on those paths all the way until we get to this intersection where they are understandably scared to cross the busy streets. And as their dad, so am I. Mayor Norton has dubbed 2025 the year about youth. Let's prioritize youth independent mobility in our street designs. Please do not approve this intersection design without removing the unnecessary Highway 14 left turn lanes. And my friend Shelley Rowe was unable to be here, but she asked that I read her letter to the editor for Post Bulletin. She said, "I'm disabled. I use a power wheelchair to go places on my own. I'm not a person who has a long history of public involvement, but I took the time to engage with MnDOT over the redesign of the intersection of Highway 14 and Broadway. I was saddened that my concerns for the safety of disabled people were not only ignored, but the intersection is actually being made more dangerous to cross. I advocated for slower speeds and shorter crossing lengths to cross Highway 14. The MnDOT response was to make the intersection larger and add an additional lane to cross. When the public was finally invited to provide input, the intersection had already been designed and decisions made, making this well-known dangerous intersection harder to cross and maintain on safe speeds. The location where the public input session was held was difficult to access for a person that can't drive. Despite these barriers, I still made it a point to attend, only to find my voice did not matter because the design to build a bigger high-speed intersection had already been made. I just want to be able to safely cross the intersection and access the farmer's market and stores not available in the downtown area where I live. The number of people being killed by drivers is increasing, but we still won't build safe intersections. I implore MnDOT to please consider input from the public earlier in the design process and prioritize safety over speed in all decisions." Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Aaron Mead.
Hi, my name is Aaron. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. So I was a student, actually, K through 8 at Lincoln at Mann. So I spent a lot of time around that intersection. And even then, I recognized that it was not an intersection that could serve me as a non-driver, obviously. And as it stands, the intersection of Broadway and Highway 14 is a barrier to the freedom of movement for anyone outside of a car and dangerous for those in it, as well as outside. Many years later, I am really excited that it is getting another look. I think this is a real opportunity to improve the safety and connectivity of Rochester in this part of town. However, I don't think today we can talk about all the ways that we can make it more safer. And we can't talk today about how we make the farmer's market or the county fair or the many other businesses located around the intersection accessible to everyone, regardless of how they get around. We can't because we must discuss how Rochester faces the imposition of a design from MnDOT that not only fails to tear down these barriers to movement, but would create a less safe, more obstructive intersection in place of what already exists. Rochester should withhold municipal consent for any proposal that includes extra turn lanes that would widen the intersection. In addition, the city should send a letter to the commissioner and state officials requiring that consent must not be bypassed and that the design submitted must be consistent with the transit-oriented district, MnDOT safe systems approach, MnDOT context-sensitive solutions, and the advisory on traffic safety's focus on roadways and fatalities at intersections. And I think it's not controversial to say that drivers certainly have a responsibility when it comes to safety, but it's also well documented in research that poor street design and intersection design causes a generally safe driver to make less safe decisions, whereas well-designed intersections make all drivers behave more carefully. With the current proposal, by adding turning lanes and increasing the width of the intersection, that's the kind of design that will doom, sooner or later, a well-intentioned driver to slip up and catastrophically alter someone else's or their own lives. I know every design has trade-offs, but I do not know of anyone who would take a slightly higher intersection capacity or efficiency for that cost. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Luke Doski.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you, members of the council. I'm coming here to give my public witness to this intersection, as well as like the process of providing input to MnDOT and our vision for the future of Rochester. So when I moved here to Rochester 8 years ago, I lived near Mayo High School on US Highway 14. It's lined with many small houses from the 1950s, and I didn't have a vehicle because I was a student, and I had to walk to get a haircut and sport clips. So I walked, maybe 2 miles down to Sport Clips, and I had to cross a US Highway 14 and Broadway intersection. There was only 2 crossing points. So then I had to walk all the way down to Hy-Vee and then cut back to get my haircut. But so this design, as it is now, is very, not very good for pedestrians. And we see that in the MnDOT's new design that is improving. There are new pedestrian crosswalks. However, there is added turn lanes to two of their crossings. And this is going to increase the amount of time that it's going to take to cross that intersection. So there is some improvement, but there is somewhere that there's some improvement that could be done even more than that. Also, these areas, the Seneca food site, Kmart, and all this area is going to be increasingly urbanized. And this is no longer a trunk highway in a rural area. This is going to be a vibrant center for Rochester. And we as a community we should support all users no matter their ability, because this is a city that cares, and we need to see that in our infrastructure. So I ask that you not have municipal consent to this design. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Michael Wojak.
Greetings, council members. My name is Michael Wojak. I am here as the Executive Director of the Bicycle Alliance of Minnesota on behalf of our tens of thousands of members and supporters and a number of partner organizations around the state. There would actually be a lot more people here talking to you tonight, but this is the scheduled end of the session of the legislature, so a lot of other organizations are there tonight, and there is no way for people to dial in remotely to these meetings. That's also why Shelley had to have her letter read here. Our request, very simple, deny municipal consent. You can do that. You cannot redesign the intersection tonight, but you absolutely can do that. And you can absolutely direct staff to write to the Commissioner of Transportation and request a safer design consistent with the City of Rochester's policies and MnDOT's. You can certainly ask questions of your city engineer, and he will in fact inform you that there are things in here that are actually not up to the standards of the City of Rochester, but despite that, this is in front of you. So let's talk about context-sensitive solutions, because that's something that the Department of Transportation talks about quite a bit, and they look at the context. And you've done some incredible work in this area, upzoning this area to be transit-oriented development and node development, and also creating a primary transit network. You should know that this design runs counter to the ability to achieve both of those things. Transit-oriented development is awesome. You can do really incredible things. Here's some places that are enabled by transit-oriented development that I've been to around the world. The bottom line is if you build a 7-lane wide intersection and a 40-mile-per-hour expressway, you're not going to get the kind of development that is already envisioned in your plan. And here's a lot of my colleagues have talked about individual things. I want to talk about the big picture. It's just like, in what kind of world do you have a situation where the community is planning a transit-oriented street, transit-oriented development, and the engineering solution to that is we're going to build a 40-mile-per-hour expressway and a 7-lane wide intersection that people have to cross? It's ridiculous on the surface, but we can dig down and see the different policies that it does not align with. Let's talk about induced demand. A lot of people are using 14 because it's there. In reality, if you pull up Google right now, if you're going from Eota to Byron, it's never going to route you on 14. It's not the most efficient route. And a lot of the traffic there is induced. And if you make smart changes to these intersections and projects that they come up, the traffic is going to take care of itself. The Department of Transportation is mandated to reduce vehicle miles traveled, and they're not factoring this into their calculation. The City of Rochester has taken important steps to reduce peak hour traffic coming into downtown. That is also not considered in the context. City of Rochester design speed for this would be 30 miles per hour. I don't know if your city engineer told you that or not, but that's certainly a fair question to ask for. We're not asking to change the design speed on this because we want to prioritize what can be done and keep everything on schedule, and that is going to be those left turn lanes. Let's take the MnDOT slides and look at what MnDOT says about this. MnDOT says they have a safe systems approach, and that safe systems approach means they're going to design safe speeds and safer roads. What does that mean? Well, first and foremost, in an area that you expect dense pedestrian and bicycle transportation like this, you would want slower speeds. The actual design speed here is such that any impact with pedestrians or cyclists would largely result in a fatality. That is not what you want to do in this kind of place. They take a Swiss cheese approach that drivers make mistakes. You've heard that. The reality is that no one solution is going to fix it all. But if you design for safe speeds and you have safe intersections, safe roads, along with other interventions that can be better. The reality is this design does not factor in safe speeds or safe roads. There are great things that are being done on the Broadway crossing side, but it's just 14 is the issue here. It's going to be absolutely proved deadly, and it's going to move traffic faster and induce more demand. There are a ton of issues that we have identified this, not the least of which is the fact that this was designed by the Department of Transportation, and then they decided to do community input and surprised the design didn't change. We're only asking for one thing: eliminate that added left turn lane, reduce the 14 crossing length to less than 70 feet. This is a life-saving ask that everyone's doing. You can't mandate them to do that, but you can deny municipal consent. We are united. You've heard from school officials, county officials, state officials, disability advocates, and just about every bike, walk, roll, transit, safety-focused nonprofit in Minnesota, I can tell you, does not support this design. Your vote matters. By not granting municipal consent, we can work towards a safe solution that will work for everyone. It is critically important to realize that for all that glowing review about the community impact, not a single organization is here supporting this design. That's because it's a terrible design.
Wojak. Next up, we have Greg Wright.
Council President, City Council members, thank you very much. My name is Gregory Wright. I live at 2230 Cedar Park Court Southeast, which of course brings me up to Highway 14 to go to any place in the city. I'm here as a citizen of Rochester, even though that you know that I am a county commissioner. And part of my district also abuts to this Highway 14 project. I'm here to tell you about the demographics of the city, which is getting older. Getting older means is that they have a harder time walking and getting from place to place. This design does not help our pedestrians. I am very concerned that this project as designed will divide the city of Rochester into north and south. And the people that are going to be very intimidated of crossing Highway 14 because of the speeds and because of the distances. We do not want to divide the city into north and south. Has this ever been done before? Yeah, we learned that lesson in the Twin Cities when they divided the Rondo neighborhood. I do not want us to divide neighborhoods. I want the city of our kids as well as older people to be able to traverse the city as pedestrians. I'm very concerned that we have an asset in the city of Graham Park, but we have to have people be able to get to Graham Park as pedestrians down 3rd Avenue, where the city has other plans for development. This is a very important project, and I think that other people who have been before me have told you that there are alternatives to this. I encourage you to withhold municipal consent as well, so that maybe the DOT would be much more interested in talking to the city about a better design that would protect our pedestrians, protect our bicyclists, slow the traffic down, and decrease the amount of accidents that could happen, as well as not divide the city into north and south. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. Next up, we have Marty Cormack.
Good evening, council members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Marty Cormack. I live in Ward 1, so I live south of Highway 14. I would ask that you consider not allowing municipal consent on this item. And other speakers more eloquently talked about the additional turn lane, making it more a longer crossing. I disagree with MnDOT's assessment that it doesn't increase demand. Adding a lane will induce demand. I know people who do not drive on that road during rush hour because of the backup. You add another left lane, you're going to add capacity. So I disagree with MnDOT. The other thing is, in the long term, you really need to get this trunk highway out of South Rochester. Right now, the Bear Creek Trail is, which I use to commute into town, is closed, and now I have to cross at grade. And I can't believe how busy Highway 14 has gotten over the years. And it's just gonna get worse. If you build this with the extra turn lane, it's just gonna be worse. So I really would ask first to reject municipal consent. And secondly, in the future, at any opportunity you have to get Highway 14 rerouted out of South Rochester, please do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And that concludes the folks that are on my list. This is a public hearing. If anyone else wishes to be heard on this item, please step forward. If anyone else wishes to be heard on this item, please step forward. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and invite Mr. Austin back up to answer any questions came up during the public hearing. And you have 5 minutes.
Sounds good. Thank you, Council. So a couple of things I wanted to just touch base on. The project itself is being designed. Highway 14 is being designed for 30 miles an hour. There's nothing in our design that inhibits us from posting that road at 30 miles an hour the day it opens. What is preventing us from doing that right now is state statute that requires a process that we need to go through to post a speed limit to make a change. Now, if there was a way to change that through the commissioner or some other means, the team is more than ready and willing to post that at 30 miles an hour. But that's out of our team's control at this point. So I just wanted to address that. It is a 30-mile-an-hour design. Nothing changes with that project if it's posted at 30 today. Number two, the left turn lane issue. There's 6 lanes on Highway 14, 2 throughs in each directions and dual lefts. So there's 6 lanes. Our design actually increases the crossing of Highway 14 by 4 feet from what it is today. What that 4 feet gets us is more green time at the intersection for pedestrians. Originally, all 4 quadrants of the intersection were just going to be designed with dual lefts, Broadway and Highway 14. The city, in partnership with MnDOT, which is what it has been since day one, said, hey, you need to look at that closer because we're not comfortable with that. We did another study, and upon further investigation, we found that if we kept the left turn lanes on Highway 14, we could put more green time on Broadway Avenue, eliminating the need for the dual lefts by also increasing the length of the turn lane on Broadway Avenue. Unfortunately, on Highway 14, we're limited by 3rd Avenue and Crossroads Drive. We're not able to lengthen the Highway 14 left turn lane anymore because we're bumping up against the left turns for 3rd and Crossroads. So what happens is we put the dual lefts on 14, allows the intersection to function more efficiently. 50,000 cars use that intersection. We're not going to increase the capacity. The design does not do that. It allows it to function more efficiently. It's not a future projection problem, it's a current problem. There's cars that are spilling back into through lanes today. That's not a future projection, that's happening today. What we see is when people get frustrated with how the system is operating, they start to do dumb things. And that's what's going to happen if we don't build those 2 left turn lanes. You're going to have people that are frustrated, they're already frustrated today. They start to eliminate the benefits that we're getting out of this design, the smart channels, the raised crosswalks, elevating pedestrian importance. All that flushes out the window when people start doing dumb things because they're frustrated because they can't get through the intersection. That's the key to remember here. It's not increasing capacity, it's increasing safety by producing a more efficient operation that elevates pedestrian crossings. I'd love to be able to go through that smart channel and show you just how. So right now, when that pedestrian crosses, there's going to be no conflict with left turners. So when a pedestrian crosses Highway 14, nobody on Broadway is going to be turning left and conflicting with that movement. Nobody's going to be turning right and conflicting with that movement. All the traffic, all the pedestrians are moving in the same direction. We engineer a crossing at 3.5 feet per second. The green time for the traffic is significantly longer than the time that we would engineer for a pedestrian to cross the 84 feet on Highway 14. That's the same amount of time that is used to design the intersections downtown Rochester, where you have the medical facilities with people of all kinds of challenging needs to get across an intersection. So the green time that we have more than accommodates pedestrian crossing on Highway 14. That 4 feet for that turn lane gets you an intersection that is actually safer, more efficient, and operates better. One other thing I want to recognize is that the crossing of Broadway Avenue is actually going to be going down by 5 feet from what it is today. So by not needing that left turn lane, that extra left turn lane on Broadway Avenue, we're actually reducing the crossing distance on Broadway by 5 feet from what it is today. So that's another added benefit. One other quick thing, if I can get to it, I just wanted to show you the pedestrian connectivity of this intersection is, I think, just amazing. So we're reconstructing or rebuilding or adding all the light blue facilities, 10-foot shared use path. We're rebuilding the path around Soldiers Field from a 10-foot to a 12-foot pedestrian access path, shared use path. We're providing all those new crossings or improved crossings at Broadway and 14, 3rd and Crossroads. And then we're connecting to all those brown existing trails. So at the end of the day, what you have in that blue is complete connectivity in all directions, in all modes of the intersection. So pedestrians can move in every direction that they need to go out there.
Thank you, Mr. Austin. You may have a seat, and we may call you back up if council members have questions for you. At this point, council members, questions for staff or the MnDOT representative? Councilmember Fredericks.
One thing that wasn't addressed, you said just in the south portion of the project, there is a concern for contamination. What is the source of that contamination that you're concerned with?
Sorry, yeah, that's good. It's, the condensed time is hard. I just kind of spewed
all
things
right.
out, and so sorry about that. So contaminated materials, there is the potential for petroleum-based contaminants. When I mentioned South Broadway, so MnDOT is really responsible for the majority of the project. Highway 14, everything to the south of the intersection would be MnDOT's responsibility. Approximately where the left turn lane on Broadway ends, from there north would be city responsibility. That's where your cost share is included. So if there were to be contaminants in that northern portion, that would be a city cost to mitigate that.
Okay.
Like I said, there was a bunch of investigation done for the mill and overlay project, and there's really nothing that's been found so far. And I'm not saying there couldn't be still, and there'll be additional investigation that's done. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear that there is a risk there that's not completely gone yet.
I was just going over it in my mind, and I thought maybe it meant at one time there was some kind of a spill in the south portion, if there was a filling station there once upon a time. I didn't know exactly what you meant by that. You're just basically covering your bases is all you're doing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Hey, Councilmember Palmer.
Mr. Ross, as you're up here, I got a couple of questions, but
Yeah.
the first one for you. So if the city of Rochester decides not to approve this, the money goes somewhere else?
Yeah, so basically the money would go to another project someplace else.
And would you then, the stoplights get replaced and then the road configuration stays the same? Is that what you're kind of alluding to?
We would have to step back and look at how we go forward, but yeah, the signals, as you know, as I noted, are at the end of their life. So I don't know if that would be a signal replacement where it is and we live with the configuration as it is today, or how that looks. Or we do, a Band-Aid fix on the pavement again and just mill and overlay it.
Okay. And the last question for you would be, you're telling us right now that it's designed for 30 miles an hour after this project is done. So as I come in from town or I leave from Apache Mall, is that also going to be 30 miles, or am I going to hit 40 and then hit 30 and go through that?
That's a great question. So as you go west of the Broadway 14 intersection, it's a much more rural feel. It has open ditches. It's more open, it's wider, the roadway. I think there would be some challenges with posting that at 30 going to the west because it doesn't feel like it as you go that way. That's not my area to make that determination. That would be a traffic engineering thing that would go through our district traffic engineer. I think in my mind, and this is just me speaking, from Crossroads going east, 30 feels appropriate. You're getting into a very urban setting. You have a lot of residential. It fits. And as the roadway would be redesigned in the future, the current overlay that's going on right now hopefully gets us 10, 12, 15 years. At that point, at the end of that, there's going to be a reconstruct of the rest of Highway 14. And I think at that point, you'll be looking at a much more constrained design, similar to what we have here with pedestrian facilities off the roadway, a constrained roadway that would really lend itself towards that 30 miles an hour going east to Marion.
For Mr. Dabrowski, I got a couple of questions for you. I think I heard that if we wanted to, we could apply to have the belt line down to 30 miles an hour the whole way. Is that something that the engineers, you can ask, or do we need as a city council to ask for that?
We cannot elect to change the speed limit along a trunk highway or a county road. We can only do that on our own city streets.
But we can apply?
You could.
Mr. Austin made the inference that we could apply to the commissioner to have that.
Yeah, and what happens with the current method is they would have to do a speed study post-project to understand what the traveling public is driving along that corridor, which could reduce the speed limits. And that's why, as Tom, Mr. Austin mentioned, everything we did with lane widths and the design, as we worked with MnDOT on 14 was push them to make sure it's meeting a 30 mile per hour design speed such that it wouldn't require some reconstruction in the future if we were able to get them to change that speed limit to 30.
And so you just said that you've been working with MnDOT on this design?
Yeah, oh, definitely. We've again, I mentioned in my intro, we've been more intimately working with them for the last 2 years as part of the project team. We're at every monthly meeting, sometimes weekly meetings, really pushing them. I'm pretty ecstatic in that, considering when I started my career just over 20 years ago, to have MnDOT even talking about walking and biking is tremendous now. That wasn't something that I witnessed early in my career. We've gotten them to change the 5-foot walk along like Friedel and the Seneca parcel to a 10-foot wide shared use path. There's no current walking or biking facilities on the north side between Broadway and 3rd Avenue. They're adding a 10-foot shared use path. We've reduced those right turn lanes with raised crosswalks. I acknowledge the concerns around the additional left turn lane on 14. However, the thing that makes me feel much more comfortable around the design is that we will never allow a vehicle to be turning left when those pedestrians are crossing 14. We have the signal is designed, you'll have the red arrow, so there is no car in conflict with a pedestrian or biker that's crossing those 2 legs of 14 with the signal system, and that's what we can do with the signal controller.
And that's what we did at Broadway and 14th Street Northeast. When we got rid of the free right, I can cross there or run across or bike across and not have to worry about that traffic anymore. Is that correct?
Yeah, and just from a general approach around the community with our signal systems, we're eliminating those left turns where we can. Some of the older systems, we don't have the right controller, so it'll have to happen in the future, but Sam, our traffic engineering team, to try to eliminate those conflict points, because that's what creates potential fatalities and severe crashes, is we just control it such that that movement cannot occur if there's someone in the crosswalk.
So if we don't consent to this and the money goes somewhere else, and at some point they might come back with signal lights, you probably don't like that idea.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Keen.
Can I make just a quick point of clarity? Because I think there's some confusion on that.
Councilmember, are you? Okay, go ahead.
I just wanted to make sure it's clear, because I think you misunderstood maybe a little bit. So Dylan correctly pointed out the process. So the city could request MnDOT to adjust the speed on Highway 14. That would initiate a speed study post-project. And then the 85th percentile of the average speed would be how we base that speed limit. What I was alluding to was that we're designing it for 30 miles an hour. Apart from some act of the commissioner or somebody higher than me, a lot higher than me, we can't change it today. So there would need to be an act by somebody in MnDOT's hierarchy to make that change happen today. Otherwise, we follow the process, like Dylan mentioned. The city petitions to change the speed, then we go through that process. So I just wanted to make sure that was.
Got it. Thank you, Mr. Austin. Councilmember Keen.
Thank you. Yeah. First, just on city staff, I just want to make sure we talked about, we're doing municipal consent because of one design thing with the getting rid of the access on First Avenue Southeast. So the question is, if we had not had that design point, where would we be in this process right now? Would it be assumed consent, or if we didn't have a public hearing, we'd still had to do municipal consent as a city, or where would we be in this process?
Well, as Tom noted earlier in the presentation, there wouldn't be no statutory requirement to hold this hearing. However, I would envision we have this geometric layout in front of you for approval, like we do with any of our projects, because we have a cost contribution with the overall project. So we want this in front of you and allowing you to weigh in on the layout.
So we could have, asked for a public hearing. I just want to make sure, but there would still be municipal consent if there wasn't the need for the public hearing.
I'm struggling to follow your question. We wouldn't have the municipal consent requirement per statute with no change in access.
Yeah, this project's gotten a little complicated because the city has joined in and done the work north of the project and sort of south of it. So now it becomes this joint project. That's a slightly different question. But what I was trying to get to is we are having, it is my understanding, it's not just a public hearing, but the municipal consent was based on the fact that they were closing that access to there, and that forced us to have both a public hearing, but I didn't know if it forced us to have municipal consent where we would not have even had that if it weren't for the that access point.
Correct. We would not have had the formal municipal consent, but we would have had a more informal approval, bringing it in front of you for comments, questions, and approval of the layout, knowing that we're spending, you saw the numbers, over $5 million on the project.
Okay, and that leads me to a second sort of question. That that shared project, that's really based on work on Broadway. It's not that we're contributing to the work on Highway 14.
Correct. So the right-of-way that MnDOT owns, it bleeds a little bit north of the highway up, it's 100+ feet.
Yep.
That's all within MnDOT's right-of-way. So as we look at the quantity of work occurring within that right-of-way, that's all MnDOT's cost. The cost to the city is anything north of their right-of-way. So that point up to 9th Street, the Snappy Stop area.
Good, and I just want to make sure that was clear. I also I'll commend the staff working with MnDOT, because once those projects are going on, it is a good time to do that work, and it is going to be needed in the next 10 years anyways, including the work from 6th to 9th. So those things will be happening, but I just wanted to confirm in our meeting here that was the discussion. I had some facts that I wanted to see that Mr. Austin might have contradicted my understanding. I'm of the impression that right now, from one edge to the other is a 65-foot crosswalk. I'm sorry, that's a 60-foot crosswalk that will end up in the new project being about 65 feet, which makes it that much longer, or that like 9% or 10% longer. Do you think I have my numbers right? Because right in the future, I'm not crossing those the right turns.
The number on 14 is approximately 4 feet longer. So while adding an 11-foot turn lane, we're reducing the width by taking away the shoulder / on-road bike lane that exists today. So the net result is a 4 foot longer crossing on 14. I don't have the Broadway numbers memorized, but we are reducing the crossing distance on the two legs of Broadway.
But do my numbers of like 64 feet down to 61 feet to 64 feet, does that seem accurate? Because I heard an 80-foot number.
I think it's a little bit, it's more in the 80 range, if I remember right.
And that, the math turns out to be number of feet times number of seconds to cross, that we're setting the lights accordingly.
Correct. However, with the green times needing to be a little bit longer for the northbound and southbound traffic on Broadway, the pedestrian will have longer crossing time than what we would traditionally do on a traditional city intersection based on that crossing speed. Because the vehicles will have more green time, it'll thus provide more crossing time during that, that walk phase for the pedestrian.
Okay. I also, again, I've done some tours there. I've been to a couple of the meetings with MnDOT people. I've been there with the bike groups. I still believe one of our key design things right now is this, the double left turns. And I've heard two different things. One is that since we're designing this for 40 and 50 years out, we're going to need it, versus we need it today. I want to understand that better, because I think I was on the impression that there is the risk that over time this will back up into 3rd Avenue, back up into Crossroads. Is that, when you say it's happening now, is that like once a month, or is that a concern right now? Or let me try to, if you can help me understand that better.
Well, I can.
Yeah.
So
go ahead, Mr. Dombrowski.
In looking at the level of service in the intersection, it's not breaking down, causing that requirement existing, but in the 20-year horizon, at some point, it will reach that threshold that it's essentially the intersection operations are breaking down if you don't include the dual left turn lane on 14.
Yeah, let's just spend a minute on that just to make sure, because I think that is a key design point that we're dealing with here. Does that include like mode shift and things like that? Or is that just looking at population and saying single car traffic on Highway 14 stays the same, and as population goes up, so does the traffic? Or does it take into account anything else?
It's going to be based on the background growth model that we utilize through ROCOG and their projections over that 20-year horizon, and the traffic modeling. So it really, what I've seen is the projections over time have really reduced as far as the annual growth rate. So that's where some of that is taken into account, but it doesn't specifically
address mode shift on this specific corridor.
Okay. I think I understand what you're saying, that the numbers are, take those into account, but they still have growth in the future. MnDOT seems, for lack of a better word, stubbornly dedicated that they're going to do this project with 2 left turns. I'm a little surprised. I guess I haven't heard the strong defense as much as I've heard the strong concerns. Is there more that I need to hear, that the reason we need this is like the 3rd Avenue or the crossroads, or is there other reason that I'm just not understanding the value of yet? I don't know, Mr. Austin, if you want to try to.
I can try to help with that a little bit. So a couple things. So currently the left turn lanes at Broadway, at Highway 14 to go north and south on Broadway, they're operating westbound at a level of service D, and the eastbound left is at a level of service E. So they are currently not great. And what I was referring to is we have had experience, and I can't answer how often, whether it's weekly or monthly or daily, but we did have comments in the public surveys from people that have experienced left turners backing into the through lanes as they're wanting to turn left on Highway 14 to go north or south on Broadway. So we are seeing that. What we did project, and it's a 0.5% is our projection model for that 20-year forecast. And what we see is that in the 20-year model, those turn movements break down to an E and F for the same corresponding movements. So I don't know if that helps. You know, the thing as I mentioned, and the reason it's not so much that we're passionate about having the extra left turn lanes. It's the benefit that we get in the left turn lanes. The green time that we can take that we would otherwise need to clear out those left turn lanes, we can take that extra green time and put it into the Broadway green times. So we can eliminate the need now and in the future for Broadway to have dual left turns, okay? We also allow the pedestrians to have more green time through that intersection by clearing out those left turners more quickly. Because as Dylan mentioned, we are not gonna allow left turning vehicles to conflict with pedestrians.
Yeah.
That's one of the benefits of those dual lefts, is it allows the intersection to operate more efficiently so we don't have those conflicts with left turners and pedestrians. Does that help?
I think it does. You have a little more of a passionate defense of your design. That's what I was looking for, because up to now, it was just like, that's how we want to do it. So
no, it's not. And like I said, we would actually have entertained just lengthening those left turn lanes, but we can't because we bump up against Crossroads to the west and 3rd Avenue to the east, where we have the left turn lanes to use those 2 intersections. So we can't lengthen that left turn lane. And you're kind of, you know, when the capacities of, when the amount of traffic that's on Highway 14 continues to, when it gets to the levels that it's at, there's only so much turn lane that you can add, you know, because it gets so long that it becomes inefficient because it just takes so long to get through that cycle. So the dual lefts allow that to flush out quickly. And then you take that time and you leverage it towards other movements, and especially pedestrians, to elevate their importance in the intersection.
Councilmember, do you have more questions?
No.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yeah, it
Yes,
does. Thank you.
we're going to move to Councilmember Wall.
Mr. Austin, if you could stay there. With Mr. Palmer's question about if we don't approve, the money goes away. Slide 5 in your presentation seems to indicate that there might be 3 options going forward to meet the city's conditions, appeal process, or stop the project. Could you comment more on that? Is there no room for further negotiation in the next 90 days?
I think there's some room for negotiation on some items that would be negotiable. And for the reasons I just explained, I think the point here is the left turn lanes. That's the tripping point, right? That is such a vital part of making the intersection function and be successful that it's really non-negotiable for us. And it's not because we want more cars there or we're trying to do induced demand, a situation like that where we increase capacity and it works for a little bit and then it breaks down. It's because we want to take that time and leverage it for those other movements so the intersection is successful. And so that's why I say that. If there's some small thing that is, we can adjust, absolutely, if the council were to say something like that. But that's a non-starter for us because it has such a significant ramifications on the functioning and the performance of the intersection.
My second question is on slide 9. You report on public engagement, and it looks to me like bicyclists and pedestrians, from your data, have a higher positive approval of this than motorists. What's the raw data on that? Is this 12 people showing up in a room, or is this 500 people?
Can I do have that
If you would
raw
like to
data.
step forward, Ms. Morgan.
My name is Cindy Morgan, and I'm the Public Engagement Coordinator for MnDOT.
Speak into the microphone there.
Thank you. So what we did in the last stakeholder event, our last design, was we asked people at the open house and then also online when we released the survey to tell us what they thought of the current intersection. Then we asked them to tell us how they use the intersection and then what they thought of the proposed design. So those are the numbers that you see there, is just kind of raw data. So if they said that they never use the intersection by vehicle, they didn't receive a count. If they said rarely, so on and so forth. And we chose to do that because there were some pedestrians or bicyclists who said, I don't like to use this intersection as much because of X, Y, and Z. But the idea is we are seeing quite strong opinions from motorists, also pedestrians and bicyclists as well. And so the idea was to kind of gauge if this still was considered a general improvement. And so these are the numbers that you see here. We did notice that there was quite a high pedestrian and bicyclist identification versus like maybe the survey that I would run in other areas. And I would like to thank, obviously, there's a very strong bicycle and pedestrian advocacy group here in Rochester. And I think we saw that come back on that online survey especially. Does that kind of help to address?
A little bit. Again, could you tell me about how many this survey or online represents?
Gosh, I think the in-person meeting, we had about 75 individuals. And again, I asked this in person, we had people fill out this at the in-person event and then also online. Oh, online, well into the hundreds. Sometimes we see lower amounts because of the size of the survey. When you start asking really detailed questions and people to really get into the details, we do see lower participation when that happens. If we would ask a simple question like, do you like chocolate or vanilla ice cream? Obviously, we'd have a higher response. And so that kind of was reflected here too as well. So overall, approaching 300 or so. But when we look at the sampling of, again, who we saw returning back on this, we saw a very strong return, which is why I decided of the pedestrian and bicyclists, which is why I decided to kind of break them out in the category, just to see if we saw a noticeable return, a difference between these groups. And this is the numbers that came out of it.
Thank you.
Councilmember Miller.
Sure, I have a couple of questions for staff. So one of the items brought up was the zoning designation. Can you talk about sort of the zoning surrounding this MXT node, what that means for future development over, like, looking at the comp plan, what, 2040 is their outlook?
Yeah, so at Cable's Community Development, the portion of the property, or the portion located north of Highway 14 is located within the TOD. And then once you go south, kind of outside of Crossroads, you kind of transition from TOD node down to MXS. And really the zoning is for a transit-oriented development. So the zoning itself is in place and usually is there before a future transit network, but really building the spaces for to support a future extension of the transit line. The comp plan itself, as most recently approved and adopted, is consistent with the zoning. So it's not as if the zoning and the underlying land use are inconsistent, but really just kind of waiting for development to spur there and support a future transit system.
Can you talk about what sorts of buildings, like what setbacks, how might we understand the zoning as it's developed today? Like what kind of zoning would that be versus what is shown in the current MXT node? Like what is the difference between what we see developed there today versus what would be built?
Sure. I would say based on the current TOD and the setbacks associated with it, it requires a 15-foot setback maximum. So essentially within the front property line, a building would be placed within 15 feet. Just with the size of Broadway and the right-of-way, I think it'd be difficult to accomplish that. And also really the orientation of the buildings itself as it lies east of Broadway is kind of centered or oriented not towards Broadway, but more or less within the residential streets within there. I would say it would really take, just as future development begins and to really, I guess, support a transit system there would just take not significant investment, but future investment. And we just really haven't seen a developer tackle that yet.
So is it fair to say that looking at a 60-year trajectory, which is the time since this last intersection was rebuilt or built for the first time, that this is locking in this design roughly for 60 years and it would continue to be incompatible with 15-foot setbacks?
I wouldn't necessarily say that it would be incompatible. I think that as development occurs in the area, we would perhaps see redevelopment of the streets or whatnot. I'd say that it's perhaps not necessarily suited for TOD as is right now. But as I previously mentioned, the zoning, comes before the future transit system and then kind of reacts to what gets developed there.
Okay. So I guess a question for the MnDOT team. I see the types of users surveyed: vehicle, pedestrian, bicyclist. Is it fair to assume that vehicle is really person driving their own vehicle?
Yeah,
Can you step forward to the microphone?
My apologies. In order to, again, reduce those barriers for survey fatigue, we didn't ask them to identify additionally or more. So the assumption here is however they choose to identify, whether that's freight, minivan driver, whatever, motorcyclists.
There was a comment that was brought up about transit planning, transit users, our transit system. Can you talk about how you consider transit access and transit planning in the intersection design here? Was RPT part of your engagement with the city?
So typically what we do with public engagement is that we begin here, asking some of those really questions about who should be involved. So we leveraged the city to be able to allow us to bring in folks who needed to be and those points of information. We did not directly engage with Rochester Public Transportation, just simply because we assumed that was going to be done through that stage.
And so then I guess a question for the city, I'm not sure whom, but there was also a comment brought up about the possibility of extending an express bus rapid transit system, having a bus priority lane there. What is your comment, reaction to that availability to do bus access? If there are two vehicles turning from east or west onto Broadway, how does that affect our ability to provide increased transit capacity and reliability along that corridor?
We definitely don't currently have a plan for a dedicated bus lane on Broadway. However, it is a primary transit network.
Mm-hmm.
So what that future design looks like, I guess I can't speak to if it's exactly like Second Street, which if it were that, then yes, the second left turn lane would be in conflict with that bus access, or the business access and transit lane, the BAT lane that we have on Second Street. But right now we don't have any plans for a dedicated bus line along South Broadway. But we do acknowledge that it's identified as a primary transit network in the long term.
Okay. Sorry to keep calling both of you back up. I guess also I think about the other planning that the city is doing, and I know you said that you engaged, but when we think about the addition of a 6th Street Bridge and East Terminal for the bus rapid transit line phase 1, that then is accessible from 3rd Avenue, how does that factor into the traffic model? Like shifting patterns, maybe fewer people are choosing to even use this intersection. Like how does the traffic model do that? It sounds like you're just assuming that traffic grows at a steady 0.5 percentage point per year, no matter what else happens. Is that fair to make that assessment of the traffic model?
I can take that. So the ROCOG model has been updated to account for the Link project and our bus rapid transit. So the overall background model that, the team starts with, it incorporates those projections into the model.
Okay. And I guess I'm curious then, with our city projections for VMT reductions, I'm hearing that at MnDOT, there are also future mobility planners. There's an updated bicycle plan coming. It sounds like VMT strategies are being built in, but not yet applied to the plan here. Recently was at a presentation where the Metro MnDOT office is presenting about TDM strategies that they're planning for a project that's currently under construction and post-construction. Do you just assume that traffic demand is what it is and you build capacity for your model's demand, or are you trying to modify it in other ways through programs, et cetera? I see other offices in the state doing that. Is that a factor here?
Is that to Mr. Austin?
But I believe so. I'm looking at him.
Step forward, Mr. Austin.
Yeah, I don't know that I have a really good answer for you on that. Vehicle miles traveled reduction is, I think we aren't doing anything directly in the project to address that. I think intuitively what we are doing though is by, again, those 2 left turn lanes in the design really reduces idle time. And so in a sense, you're reducing the congestion and those greenhouse gas emission effects. But as far as reducing vehicle miles traveled, the law was passed, but there's no policy that's actually been implemented or direction given from MnDOT upper management to how to implement that new law. And I would also note that the project doesn't actually add any capacity. There's no additional through lanes. So it isn't even meeting the requirements of that law. Not that it shouldn't address vehicle miles traveled. That should be a goal that we have no matter what. But like I said, there's no directive given as to how to achieve that with this project. Does that help?
I think I would just acknowledge that there are certain mitigating factors, though, that are being incorporated in this project as we think about the added shared use paths along the corridor, where people do have other options for that trip that they're going to take. And can they safely cross the intersection to go from the neighborhood to the Aldi to grab groceries, or whatever it might be, to go to a restaurant along the corridor. That the project does allow for additional travel options by incorporating that connectivity as we think about people walking and biking.
Okay. So I guess my final question, you mentioned 50,000 daily trips and that this intersection design increases efficiency. So can you talk about the percent of the day that the level of service is, in your mind, unacceptable, or by your standards, unacceptable? Like how much time? We've got 24 hours in a day. How many hours are at an unacceptable level of service?
I don't have with me the exact hours. It's the peak hours that are typically what we arrive at our level of service designation upon. I'm assuming that it's the peak hours are in the AM and PM peaks.
So twice a day on weekdays.
Yeah, I would say that's most likely. Without that data in front of me, I don't know if you remember off the top of your head.
Yeah,
Noel,
I mean, the traffic study is going to identify that peak hour in the morning and in the afternoon. So really, it's a couple hours.
And I guess I have just a couple of follow-up questions on capacity. You have traffic models, and then we have construction projects, which in some ways are pilot projects of what can we reduce the capacity to. Can you talk about what's actually happening now with backups on Highway 14 with effectively a reduction in lane in both directions? I mean, every time I've seen it, the cones are closing that same portion of the lanes you're talking about. And I don't see people backed up there all day when I pass. So, I mean, we're running a pilot now to have capacity so the mill and overlay can be done, where you're saying there's a need for an additional left turn lane in both directions. Can you talk about that?
Actually, I don't know what the process is, how it's been going with the mill and overlay.
So I don't have a lot of information about that. I tend to be more isolated on the construction way out ahead. My team members handle more of that. It could be due to a number of factors, including messaging of getting out of, hey, consider that there is going to be a lot of congestion. I can't speak to what is causing that or not.
So is it fair to say that there's traffic demand management happening right now with construction that's not built into this project design for post-construction?
I'm not a traffic person, so I would not be the correct person to answer that.
Okay,
I would just
Mr.
add,
Dombrowski, go
I would
ahead.
add anecdotally, we are getting calls about complaints about traffic on 14 and the queues. And I'll be honest, I live in Southwest Rochester. I'm just avoiding 14 right now because I don't want to go there. But, so yes, it is a very good point. With some of our construction projects, Broadway's another example, you can understand the impacts from if we do reduce a lane. I would never advocate for reducing 14 down to one lane in each direction, but if there's something we can learn from the mill and overlay project, I guess we need to try to understand that.
well, I just feel like I'm learning that maybe the left turn lane projections, when we're running a pilot project on travel demand management and reduce capacity for a period of time, maybe that system can function because we have a system of roadways to absorb and allow people to make other travel options.
Further questions? I've got a couple questions, I'm going to dig down a little deeper into Councilmember Miller's line of questioning on the TOD and the neighborhood nodes. So when we designated that area as a TOD route, and then it's also been designated through the comp plan as a neighborhood node. So could you talk about the principles of a neighborhood node and what principles that the changes to that intersection are in line with it, and what may not be in line with the the long-term objective of a neighborhood node for that area?
Council President Schubring, I can take that question. So I just, one slight correction there. I wouldn't call it a neighborhood node, it's a transit node. And so what we're getting at when we call it a node is that is sort of the destination of travel. So a node is intended to be.
I guess I call it a neighborhood node because I used to live in the neighborhood. And
Right.
so it was a neighborhood and
Yeah.
we had pedestrians and bicyclists
Yeah.
going to crossroads.
So the difference in zoning between the corridor and the node is that the node is a more intense zoning designation. You're allowed to build taller, more dense buildings in a node than the corridor, because in theory, that's where the bus is stopping. So that's where people are getting off, and you can have more dense development at the node. So I'm not sure there is a direct correlation between node and corridor in this intersection, except that in TOD in general, the goal is to make it friendly for pedestrians, and I think that's the core of the debate that you're having here, is how friendly is it for pedestrians and which is the most efficient for pedestrians. So again, TOD in general, more development, more intense development, and pedestrian-friendly development is kind of what you're after.
Thank you. Other questions, council members? Councilmember Wall.
So I have 3 questions, which are very short, easy, I think, for Mr. Dombrowski. Does the city believe that this intersection will be safer for pedestrians?
Yes, we do, and that's why we're recommending
Do you
the
believe
council approves it.
Do you believe it will be safer for bicyclists?
Yes.
Do you believe it's going to be safer for vehicles?
Yeah.
So if we did a 10-year study, 10 years from the completion of project, you would expect fewer than 152 car crashes.
Correct.
You would expect less than 4 bicycle crashes, and you would hope for 0 pedestrians.
Yeah, I would hope for 0 on
all.
a
Sure.
lot,
Sure,
all of them.
yeah, that was a poorly worded question. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Any further questions? Councilmember Miller, go ahead.
I guess related to that for the MnDOT team, perhaps for staff. Could you talk about the direction of traffic fatalities and trends of serious injuries across the statewide system?
Mr. Austin?
I can't, that's not my, I can't answer that statewide.
So when we look at the statewide highway system, the trends that I see are that rates of fatality and serious injury are increasing. Is that true?
I would say that.
Need people at the mic, please.
I believe that those numbers that are released by Towards Zero Death, TZD, monthly are state reflective and not just on the highway system.
Okay. So on our roadway systems, despite no change, right, and some safety improvements, we're still seeing a stubborn increase in serious injuries and fatalities on our road system.
Yes, they've seen an odd increase since the pandemic. That has a noticeable trend. Yeah, upward.
So I would love to see this too go towards zero and these factors, but I just question whether or not that's a realistic expectation when we look at statewide trends. And I just think 60 years into the future, what might viewers from the future of this intersection be thinking on the horizon of what was safest at the time?
It sounds like we're kind of moving into discussion, so I'm going to ask if there is a motion. Councilmember Palmer, go ahead.
Yes, I'll make a motion adopting a resolution to approve the geometric layout for the Broadway Avenue South / Trunk Highway 14, 12th Street Southeast Beltline Intersection Improvement Project number J6073, State Project 5502-109.
Moved by Councilmember Palmer. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilmember Keen. We're not there yet. Councilmember Palmer, we'll do that when you're ready. Councilmember Palmer, you have the floor.
Well, I think this has been a good discussion. I think that looking out in 10 years, I think Mr. Dabrowski's made it very clear that it's a safer intersection. And I trust his opinion. And I'm obviously going to be voting yes for this.
Councilmember Keen.
Yeah, again, I've struggled with this too. I've been to the intersection with, I've been to the meetings with the MnDOT people, with city engineers, but I've also been out at the intersection with the bicycle people, that length. And this was sort of, there was some insights tonight in this discussion with the efficiency of the two left turns and trying to clear the intersection. I want to make a point that's probably not real helpful in this discussion, but I'll make it anyways. There's been some changes MnDOT has done on Highway 14 in the last year where they have started doing the red, to a green left turn and then turn it to red during while the other traffic's going on. We've talked about it here as a way of protecting pedestrians crossing, but it is a frustration for cars who sit at red lights when there's no traffic coming in either direction. But I think I understood now the reason we're doing that is to make it clear that when there is bicycle or pedestrian traffic, that there is no conflicts there. And that's the trade-off. But the point is that there's efficiency going on in these intersections, but there's also certain points. Councilmember Miller made the point of through the day, there's lots of times you're going to be sitting at a red light with no traffic going the other way. That's the outcome of some of these things. They're efficient. We're looking at all the different users, the idea of pedestrians, the idea of like bicycles coming through there. But there still has got to be some sort of factor of 50,000 cars going through there, and those drivers feel like they're being efficiently moved through these conflict points. And I trust MnDOT engineers to try to make sure that happens with that safety in mind so that we don't have those conflict points.
Other discussion? Councilmember Miller.
Sure. I'll just preview. I'm not going to be supporting this motion. And despite the mention of safety, what I hear is the highest priority for this intersection is efficiency. And when I look at the factors that we can design around, we look at the speed, the volume, the safety, and the cost of the project. I've heard discussion about all of these. I think if you asked anybody in the community how they would design an intersection, they would probably pick safety as the first, and then look perhaps at the cost, right? What is the burden to the taxpayer? And then you look at, speed and volume. You probably set a lower speed that accommodates the same volume. I see that volume really seems to be driving this, right? How many cars can we get through at 2 peak times of day? And over a 60-year horizon, I'll be 99 at that time. I probably won't be around to see this intersection. And when I think about the responsibility that we have here to our community, to look at the comprehensive plan, to plan for how we see this community growing, I'm thinking about those people that even my daughter, who is now 10, will be a senior citizen at that time. She will move from the kid vulnerable road user to the senior citizen vulnerable road user in her lifetime, in the lifetime of this intersection. And what I see as most difficult to undo in this project, when we see lack of safety prioritized or as the outcome of a project like this, it is the second left turn lane, it is the additional right of way. And I understand the traffic models that are driving this, and that is a non-starter in District Office 6. I don't necessarily hear that when I go to statewide conferences and hear future mobility planning, bicycle mode shift planning that's happening at the statewide level. And I just wonder if doing this project this year under the current standards, Mr. Austin, you talked about BMT reductions, you don't have a framework to implement that. If we were 2 years in the future, would we get a different project? Would we get a safer project for that matter? And if we push now, is there an opportunity, since that already is a legislative priority to MnDOT, might we accomplish the same thing sooner? So I will not be supporting the municipal consent process today as designed.
I've got a couple of things. One, I think that what you're presenting is better than what it is now, and it adds a lot of elements. The raised pedestrian crossings are an improvement, but I think we can do better. I look at it in relation to the future. And I haven't heard anything this evening that says right now we need two left turn lanes there. And I think it's inconsistent with our plans for a transit-oriented node in that area. I did mention I lived in the Slatterly Park neighborhood for 15 years, and there is an urgent need by those residents to be able to very safely cross that node to get to what we've heard, the farmer's market, 3 schools, Soldiers Field, Crossroads, and the barber shops that are in that area. And so I want to see the vision for the future, and I see it, a vision for the future of more density in that area. We heard that from our staff that that plans for that area is more dense development. We know that more dense development means less vehicular traffic. So I'm really looking for something that looks to that 20-year period. And so I will also be voting no on this item. Other council members? Seeing none, there has been a call to call the roll on this item. So Clerk Kaisel, please call the roll.
Councilmember Keen.
Aye.
Councilmember Miller.
Nay.
Councilmember Wall.
Aye.
Councilmember Fredericks.
Aye.
Councilmember Palmer.
Aye.
Councilmember Doring.
Nay.
Council President Schubring.
Nay. Motion passes, was that 4-3?
4-3.
Thank you, and we will take a 5-minute break.
Recording stopped.
If folks can get seated, we are ready to reconvene here. That's helpful.
Recording in progress.
Okay, we are at reports and recommendations, and our first item, H1, is the potential 2026 state bonding priorities, and this is a discussion that we will be led by Deputy Administrator Aaron Parrish.
This evening, this is really a two-part conversation for you all. First tonight is really just to introduce some potential priorities for the 2026 bonding. And then at your June 2nd meeting, we'd ask you to consider a resolution supporting those priorities so we can submit those into the governor's system or the Office of Management and Budget system for consideration. Now, you might say, why are you here? The legislature's in session tonight. They may or may not adopt a bonding bill. There may or may not be a special session coming up here. But we are obligated to submit our requests in, despite the fact that we don't understand if there'll be a bonding bill adopted this year. So it's just part of the sequencing of the system. We do this every year. Really what this provides the opportunity for is for us to be considered for a visit when the House and Senate and Governor do their bonding tours in the fall. So it's really just kind of gatewaying into that. I'd also know these are submitted into the state system, so they're aware of their requests. But at the end of the day, we work with our legislative delegation on drafting legislation in order to advance whatever priorities the council adopts through its legislative priorities process. So again, it's a bit of a sequence. Just move on to what we're going to ask of you tonight is just, are any of these particular projects interesting to you and supported? Do they align with your city council priorities, or are there other projects that you'd want us to consider going into the June 2nd meeting? So again, this is an opportunity for you to engage with your constituencies as well to inform what we do in this space. So again, I'm not going to read these, but there is some cadence and some key points on what makes a good bonding projects. Generally, you want to have something that is ready to go. You want something that has some significance beyond your community. So there is a regional significance element that we're asked to speak to when we submit requests. Oftentimes infrastructure projects are very well received at the legislature. And we did include in your materials that were distributed today just some examples of what we've submitted and been funded for in the past, like Willow Creek Trail, improvements at Cascade Lake, investments in our bus facility, just any number of different things we've been successful with. Regional sports and rec complex, sales tax. But we also have the public works and parks facility expansion. So again, a number of things that we've been successful for in that space. You do have to provide 50% local match. So that's an important part of this conversation as well. Working list of the priorities. I'm just going to click through these very carefully. Some of these are going to be very familiar to you. A couple of them are new ideas for your consideration. I won't go through in detail the ones we've covered before because I think you're generally familiar with those. So airport infrastructure and energy components, that's been our top priority. At the legislature, we hope something happens here. This has been one where we have to at some point make a decision on whether we're going to continue to advance this or just move ahead with a more conventional project at the airport. But at this point, the team thinks it's still worth having in the conversation as we evaluate this year. That would provide solar and covered parking out at the airport. Sewer infrastructure for housing investment. So a lot of housing conversation at the legislature. Obviously, it's one of your top strategic priorities. This provides the infrastructure necessary, excuse me, for us to advance and develop housing and hopefully mitigate some of the cost and expense, both to the city as well as to potential purchasers of housing. We have the riverfront redevelopment that's been in the queue for a while. We've been talking about that more on a phased basis. Generally this year, we've been talking about it more as a design ask to further refine and define what it is we might be able to do and how we might impact the community. But again, something that the council in the past few years has had a lot of conversation about. 3rd Avenue, Southeast Street and sewer infrastructure upgrades. As you know, there's a lot of activity between maybe 4th and 9th and even 4th all the way to 14, but the corridor, yeah, needs some work and opportunity to think about how that integrates with the waterfront southeast development, and, you know, the redevelopment of the Kmart property as that emerges and transitions out of its parking use. And also thinking about sewer capacity and how we can support the expansion of the sewer capacity. It's kind of a bit of a bottleneck in that area. So a significant economic development project, not insignificant funding wise, but again, could be a design ask, could be something that, you know, we collaborate on with DMC. These also, we try to, you know, advance the idea about what we want to do, and then we, you know, develop a capital stack or approach on how we're going to fund these projects. So we may pursue federal funding, we may pursue state funding, local funding, et cetera. So we try to create a bit of a network on how we think about that. This is new, not really new as an idea, but new as a legislative priority potentially for bonding. As you know, we have the BRT project, which is rapidly advancing. Will be in service likely in 27. That will then bring 2nd Street Southwest down to 1 lane for vehicle traffic. And you'll have your, you know, your bus access lane or your business access lane in place there. The ITS studies, which were done, and we spent a fair amount of money on those in 2028, or 2018 rather, it showed the need at some point to think about how can we create Civic Center Drive as a corridor that both is a complete street, but also helps vehicles move into the downtown. And so trying to find the right balance, no different than the conversation you just came out of. What might that want to look like? And how can we provide something that is a great gateway into our downtown and supporting the transformative development that's happening there. So that would be a design ask. And then we have a portion of South Broadway that is unfinished at this point. And this would create an opportunity to think about both of those two together as a gateway and a design that would be cohesive and integrated, and something we could then probably phase construction around over time as funding is provided. Law enforcement training facilities, so this kind of pulling it into a different form of infrastructure, but you'll hear more when you receive the facility condition assessment that we do have a challenge with our law enforcement training facilities. We have a range that is currently out at our WRP property. The collective reinvestment needed to basically replace the current uses is estimated at $10 million out there. Now there's many things you can do in that space. You can partner with other providers, you can rethink how you do things. But this would potentially give us an option to pursue some design money or acquisition money that would allow us to have a conversation about how we might meet that need locally. More conversation required here. Again, the county does have a facility. We want to obviously continue to have conversations with them about, you know, what's the most appropriate use. But we do have some real deficiencies in the existing space, and it's something, you know, we need to be thinking about either way. So with that, kind of puts this back to you. And I'll leave you with the list. And if you have feedback on any of these particular projects, and or any others that you want us to consider, happy to do that, and then try to roll that feedback forward into your June 2nd meeting.
Mr. Parrish, I have a question to start regarding the airport parking and solar array project. So I know we don't know if the legislature is going to do a bonding bill this year. Will that still, can we still put that on for 26? I know that we have to get started with the project. Can you talk about kind of the cadence for the project itself and potential waiting on bonding for that?
Yeah, and so, I mean, we've really had a strong message that at some point we have to pick a direction here on this project. And so if we don't have a funding strategy in the foreseeable future for this, and that could be coming out of this session, which we really think would be, you know, provide a lot of clarity for us, you know, we'll have to make a decision on whether we can wait for next session, which again gets you into like next May, right? I mean, it's, you know, you're basically a year out at that point. Otherwise, we have to proceed with a project that doesn't feature the solar, doesn't feature the covered parking, and really is just a more conventional paving project out there. So we very much would love to see funding this year. I think what I would recommend to the council, if this continues to be a priority, is that we submit it as part of the required timing in June. But then we have until October to make some judgments on whether we want to advance that, into the legislative session in January. So it would just be put in, placeholder it, and you can continue to evaluate, what makes sense. And if other federal funding options for that project emerge or don't, so.
Then I had a question on the sewer infrastructure for housing and the sewer and street on Third near the Link BRT East Terminus. So, and talk to us a little bit about how legislators think about projects. In my mind, I think of the housing opportunities sewer infrastructure as a little more nebulous and not as focused as the sewer and street on Third Avenue. And I know we did get some traction for the sewer infrastructure for housing opportunities this year, interest in that. But I'm wondering if legislators really are more kind of attracted to projects that can be very easily defined.
Yeah, Council President Schubering, I think that's a great both question and observation all in one, and Brian and Assistant Administrator Yetzer and Deputy Administrator Cindy Steinhauser are here. They both live in those projects a little bit more, but I think I'll be honest, like going into it, I thought, well, yeah, this is going to be a challenge to explain to the legislature, where's the value proposition. But as you, I think, very correctly pointed out, we did get more receptivity, this session. And so I think there is some potential to build on that. And the legislature has certainly funded many sewer-related projects. Now, this is a very targeted type of sewer investment that supports development. And then, of course, they do more conventional funding, things like they did for a wastewater treatment facility at Orinoco or those types of things. But I think with the housing issue being such a big issue all around, there's been more receptivity. There's been more communities submitting bills like this. And so I think it is one of those things that might be an emerging idea and could have some success. But you also have to put it in the bucket of like, we probably need to get down to about 3 or 4 of these, ultimately that we want to both put your time into, because you all have the opportunity to testify on behalf of these, as well as just what is reasonable for us to ask the delegation to support too.
Council members, Councilmember Palmer.
Well, and going off President Schubering's question, I think is a good one, is what's the appetite to get bonding for? The airport one is inquisitive to me because if we don't get the money, we're not going to do it. What would it take for us to do it? I don't know literally what we charge for parking. I've never parked at our airport. I usually get dropped off. I mean, would we have to double, triple the cost to get this? Do we self-bond that, to do the solar panels and get it done right? Or is it so expensive to put parking in at this time that if we did it on our own?
Council President, Council Member Palmer, I don't believe we could increase rates to support or justify the additional investment there. And so then the question would be is like, where is the additional investment come from? We could further explore that going into your June meeting, just to give you a little better definition of what a self-finance project would look like there if we're not successful. But I don't know that parking rates would necessarily support that.
Okay. That's a good answer. And so the other ones that I'm familiar with is the riverfront, and that seems to be one that just does not get any traction with our legislative people. Are we having better luck getting them to buy into this, or are we just swinging at something?
I think when you go to the legislature with the project and back to that list of what makes a successful project, riverfront reinvestment certainly has happened in Minnesota. It's not an uncommon thing. I'll say the fact that we received Destination Medical Center funding can be challenging for downtown related or adjacent investments. You all that have testified understand that when you go up, they say can't DMC just fund that. And we say, no, it's got lots of other great ideas and plans for it, but it is a real perception challenge to manage. But we also want to acknowledge, though, a few years ago, the council was pretty enthusiastic about the project, and we are trying to find strategies in order to fund it. But I think of all the ones on the list, that probably is the one that's probably the most challenging to get lift at the legislature. I'd also say to reflect and respond to that, we've put in a design ask so we could build momentum for the project versus coming in with a big, you saw in the slide, I mean, it's significant funding required. So we've tried to bring that down, and then hopefully you could cascade that up, but it's challenging.
Didn't we originally think that we were going to sell the sites across the street and tie them into this project here and get some bang for the buck doing, here, build this, and then some of the money will go to the riverfront? Am I remembering that correctly?
I'm gonna ask Cindy to jump in to that part of the conversation. I think that's part of it, is the riverfront can mean a lot of things. So.
Sure, thank you, Councilmember Palmer, Council President Schubring, and members of the City Council. I just want to build off of some of Deputy Administrator Parrish's comments, just to take you back when the number of years ago when we did the riverfront bonding bill ask. It was a big ask. He said, go big, right? Go big or go home, kind of. We took feedback from the state bonding committee about break it down, make it more manageable. They didn't have a successful bonding bill, so now we're coming back with that smaller ask again. We had an ask, and we want to give it some life. To your question specifically about the parcels around the government center, so we have parcels, the west parcel and the east parcel, and we're currently working with Hunden, who's done some analysis on what makes sense in terms of, do you offer both parcels at one time? Do you do one and put the other one in a holding? Do you need both to make the project land? The idea is if we sell those parcels, the proceeds is likely needed to come back in terms of an incentive to the development, not unlike, I'll just say, Project to the North, the Sherman proposal gave them the land free as part of their financial pro forma, and their financial incentive package is free land plus TIF. So we anticipate that something similar will likely be needed for the parcels right next to the government center, that goes into the financial package and not necessarily dollars that we would collect and then turn around and put in a riverfront public realm. But the expectation that public realm would be part of that development, so in a way that cost is borne as part of that development, because we would want to make that a factor in awarding a development like we did with Sherman. There's a public realm component along the riverfront as part of their project. So that's a long way of saying, if there were proceeds from the sale of that, it likely would be part of the incentive package that the development would need in order to make the development be successful, at least to have public realm components. We do anticipate asking DMC for match that might be required for a bonding ask. So, to Deputy Administrator's comment about the state saying, well, you have DMC, and they're correct. And we do say DMC is the potential match for these bonding bill dollars for riverfront.
Last one, and it's an interesting one. We were talking about our homeless opportunities here in Rochester. And one of the things that came up is at some point, someone's just going to have to say, we need to build a mental health facility. And I know that the city typically doesn't do stuff like that. But if we could get a building built to help out with mental health, then the county or somebody else could be running that. Is that something that we could bond for?
President, Councilmember Palmer, certainly the state has a history of bonding in the health and human services space. The local example is the Southeast Regional Crisis Center, which really is, I think, I'm not exactly 100% sure what need you're talking about, but that facility is designed to meet some of the acute mental health or emergent mental health needs in the community. But there has been state funding provided for buildings like that, which is out on the county campus, or, different types of, facilities for, folks experiencing homelessness.
And I guess with the questions to me that were asked is how do we build on that? What do we do to get this? Because the answer comes back was, well, we had the state hospital in 1982, we closed it. Well, that was 50 years ago. I mean, we should be able to do something in the last 50 years to get this problem taken care of and help out these people.
It was 44.
Let's say.
44, not 50.
It's close. It's close.
I think that, I'm not disagreeing with you. It's just like a few other ideas in this space. So that I'll just acknowledge on behalf of the mayor, we had a good conversation, and, she had talked about a cultural center, which has been an idea. It's been part of the Mayor 2050 efforts, and, interesting idea. It's just, is it ready for this? Do we have a partner? Do we have the partners? Do we have the combined requests that might be needed in order to help that proposal be successful? So sometimes that readiness piece is an important piece of advancing on these initiatives too.
Thank you.
Councilmember Wall.
Thank you. Just a germ of an idea that I floated a little bit at our legislative working group a couple of weeks ago. When we heard from a lot of downtown people, it was the same 4 or 5 businesses that were mentioned all the time about destinations for locals or places of interest for visitors. When we are privileged to travel to places like St. Augustine, Savannah, Charleston, Boston, even Sedona, there's quite an eclectic opportunity for seeing different kinds of shops. Is there any way that we can bond for a stronger downtown with an opportunity for people near and far to find great joy in coming to our downtown? And I know that has a lot of challenges to it, including lack of specificity and the DMC in downtown. I know that, but just bringing it up.
Yeah, Council President, Councilmember Wall, I think that's a really, great idea. And I'm going to just also shoot this over to Deputy Administrator Steinhauser. I know there's an Strategic Initiatives Director, John, too. There is energy about, what does the historic district want to look like, and some evaluation of those improvements, and, the Third Avenue corridor and so on. And so, Third Street rather, excuse me. And I think there could be a lot of potential options in that space, whether they're DMC focused projects or whether they're bonding projects. But the physical infrastructure to create that environment and build on what the historic district is in a way that sort of complementary to it, I think certainly could be. But I also know that we're at that point where I think we would benefit from some of that additional context and planning. And so I don't know if you want to give any updates on where that's at.
Based on the planning, is that what you're saying?
The
Sorry.
historic district planning.
Sure, yeah, no, I would echo what Deputy Administrator Parrish's comments are. I would just say in the year of doing the DMC's establishing the historic district incentive funding that you approved, coming before you at the next council meeting is 4 more projects that will bring total $2.7 million of investment in just shy of a year of you approving that historic district, and DMC and the city council directing dollars. So we have a good model there in terms of the kind of impact that you could make in generating investment and business revitalization. The 8 or 10 very distinct business and property owners. So I think that serves as a good model. I think what we've learned from the downtown task force and the role that we play along with our respective partners, it's very much about how do we support the built environment, and then our partners supporting what we call the programming side of things that create the energy and the kinds of events for people to want to come to downtown. So I think, as Deputy Administrator Parrish has indicated, I think there is an idea around there that we've got a couple of successful models we could build off of if there was interest for us to pursue.
I would just maybe also add to that the South Broadway planning in terms of, what kind of streetscape and urban design that wants to complement, whatever improvements are made there. that idea can integrate with that request as well. So if you start to think about it being more of a corridor planning idea and concept, certainly urban design, public realm, streetscape are going to be important elements of that, and state bonding is a great way to pursue both those.
I'm going to jump in with my germ of an idea. Well, it's not mine, but and it kind of combines what Councilmember Wall suggested and the mayor's idea, and it's looking at the historic Chateau Theater. I know that we, as a council, sent Mr. Johnson back to do some kind of planning and visioning at the very high level, medium level, and low level. And I really think, given that the Chateau is going to be celebrating its 100th anniversary next year, that looking at that as a potential for 26 or maybe even 27, and really looking at what can we make of that to it being a destination site in the middle of downtown, including looking at culture and stuff. So that's my idea. And I will go to Councilmember Fredericks next.
You
Did I
trumped,
take-
you trumped me. You.
Is that yours?
No,
Is that
just
what you were
kidding.
gonna say?
Oh, you're okay. You're all right.
You can
Thank
pile
you,
on.
President Schubring. Thanks, Mr. Parrish, for all the information so far. I've been around a little bit now, and I'm big on needs, and I don't really have a big want list. I'm big on needs, and we've all expressed a need for housing, and not just single-family homes and stuff, all forms of housing. So anything that supports all forms of housing, different forms of housing, and the infrastructure, I think bullets 2, 4, and 5 allude to that. I think that's close to the number one concern in this community, because we need the people in this community to have housing to support all the things that are going on in this community. So people need a place, safe place to live and call home. Second of all, we do have a rising number of people that are struggling the most, is what I'll say, in this community. We do. And no great solutions have been come up with a place to a safe place for these people to go for, I'm speaking with law enforcement, places for them to bring them to get the help that they need, that is a lot more in depth than maybe volunteers and so on can offer them. And, having Councilmember Palmer brought up a great point about having a place for people struggling with mental health and various other struggles in their life that get way beyond my expertise, a place for them to go, a place for them to be. So those things like that are obviously very important. And not last on my list is anything that's going to enhance our safety in this community, law enforcement training spaces. I'm all about supporting that.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Keen.
Yeah, thank you. I get a little distracted during these discussions because, of course, we're talking about we've got to get 2026 in. 2025 is sitting in the works. We got nothing in 2024. But the fact is, in 2023 was a big year and a bunch of things came through. And it is this sort of feast or famine. And so it's important to be ready. The other thing that if you talk about when you're going through the process that part of this group went through, and maybe this group as new group will go through again, is when we look at sales tax, that was a little different in that we had to come up with zero match. So this thing has this other aspect that we have to have 50% match. So it makes it really puts some onus on what Deputy Administrator Parrish said about it should be something that you're ready to do. It shouldn't be like, well, that'd be a good idea, because it sort of happened to me that way with the park stuff, where it was a good idea to get them out where they were. But I don't think I really realized we had to come up with $14 million then after we got their 14 million. So keep it in mind. This isn't a matter of, what they're going to do for us. We're going to fund half it. So if we weren't planning and doing it and we put it on this list, we're going to try to come up with that money. And sometimes it can be enterprise money and sometimes, but other times it's like, no, you have to figure that out. And we have to bond ourselves have some good things to do sometimes, but make sure we're ready to do them. I think I've been very heartened to see the reception we've got on the sewer infrastructure for housing opportunities. And I think it is something that plays well with the nature of how the bonding works, with the idea of both parties have to support it, and the idea of it is housing, but you really can't be going and asking for funding for housing because that would be across the entire state. So I think that's one that's end up having good infrastructure. So that's one I want to continue on with. As far as this idea of like, I think there's one that's public realm, and I think we should continue on looking for this redevelopment or this next phase of this planning money for riverfront. I would rather not carry that and something for Chateau, so whatever those are. And maybe I need more education on what those outlooks are coming from Mr. Johnson's like analysis of that, if that is gonna come back. But right now, I would be worried of getting a state bonding thing surprisingly passed and then looking at us to come up with the rest of it. So those things sort of bother me. But my take would be is I like to have that one bigger infrastructure project. I really did think we were gonna have good luck with the airport parking because it was smaller. It was reasonable to fit into a $700 million funding bill without being, 1% of it. And those things turn out to be important sometimes. So, again, we'll have to keep that in mind as we go forward. The other one that it does bother me right now is like when I look at Second Street and what's happening there and like looking out 5 and 10 years, this idea of Civic Center Drive is going to change. And whether we're going to plan for that way in advance or have it just come upon us is that one I don't know how that would play. I would rather get the sewer infrastructure money and sort of beat on that, but that one is also interesting to me. So that I think we're just doing these comments today. There's no votes or anything. You're just trying to
Yeah,
consolidate it.
that's exactly what we're looking for. We really appreciate the feedback.
Good, thank you.
Councilmember Miller.
Just echo a couple of things. I do like the sewer infrastructure. I think it's interesting, and I think it supports our pitch to be able to activate the underlying foundation that we can build housing on top of, which I think is really exciting and meets a lot of state goals that I'm hearing. I also, being new to this process, I'm intrigued by Councilmember Palmer's question of what it looks like to cooperate with, say, county partners when we look at regionality being an important consideration in bonding priorities, what it looks like to go in jointly on regional impact, where there's mix of county and city support. And I'd be interested to hear what our county peers are considering so that we're not competing for dollars that ultimately benefit the whole region of Olmsted County. And I also think about our other priorities of driving this economic impact for weekend tourism, particularly. We have the sports complex coming through sales tax that has some trail connection to it. And I also think about a community just south of us at Lanesboro and how much economic impact they built around a trail system. We have regional assets, Oxbow, that wouldn't be too far to connect in coordination with the county to the Douglas Trail, potentially other destinations east or south. There's been plans I've heard about a big Bluestem Trail to connect to Stewartville. But where do we start to increase access for recreational opportunity that also drives economic impact that's in alignment with other projects we have going on? Similarly, I would be supportive of looking at the South Broadway corridor connection to Civic Center Drive. I think that in my mind, that's almost a bigger factor to redeveloping the waterfront than the planning for the waterfront area itself. Because we often hear that Broadway itself is quite a barrier between two sides of downtown. And so I could be very supportive of something like that as well. And final thought, just being new to this, is I would wonder where we might incorporate more community input. We often hear that community engagement is an area we struggle in our community surveys, and this seems like a key opportunity to gauge some community input on our bonding priorities that represent ultimately the people we serve.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Your Honor, Your Honor, just a few immediate pieces of feedback there. I think we certainly, I think, are trying to use this council process as a way to get some initial feedback, realizing, the state sets the cadence for how we submit into the system, and, we have a window to navigate that. But also each one of these, I think as we go forward and get to October and get to next legislative sessions, I think we certainly can bear that in mind. And I think that's why we also wanted to have this be a 2-meeting conversation. So you all have the opportunity to get feedback between now and June 2nd as well on what's speaking to your constituents. So I think definitely more thought to be put there. We did talk and can continue to have good conversations with the county. They are adopting their priorities at their next meeting, is my understanding. They're pretty reflective of the priorities that they currently have, and they're focused on the MRF, they're focused on the bridge on 14, and maybe one other one if I recall correctly. And because we had some light conversation in the law enforcement training space, and as they deal with some of the impact of this budget that they're anticipating, and just their kind of historical needs, they're really focused on that right now. But I think we can continue to have those conversations. And I think the regional trails ideas are very successful at the legislature. They provide a lot of opportunities to be funded. I think it would be great to have something, in the Met Council in the Twin Cities, you want to connect regional asset to regional asset. And so if we can think about how do we connect great assets like, to the Douglas Trail, out to the Park and Byron, I think those are all, very, very important things, and good for the community, but good for tourism. So at Oxbow, I don't know why I was blanking on Oxbow there, but it's great. It's a great park. I think the county is in the process of doing some trail planning, and I think that's the starting point to generate momentum in that space. So I think definitely we'll stay tuned with that and try to encourage that. I think that's a good ROCOG conversation for our ROCOG representatives too, is to just continue to encourage that trail planning, because I think we would benefit from that overall.
Councilmember Doring.
Thank you. I really appreciate the progress that has been done with the sewer infrastructure for housing opportunities bill, and I hope that we continue to carry that, especially given the forecast that bonding is all in likelihood not happening this year. So I think it's really important to carry one of those huge infrastructure. I agree with Councilman Keen on that. Looking at public realm opportunities, I appreciate the thoughts about the Chateau Theater, but I also wonder if the library could be one of those bonding opportunities. We heard a few weeks ago now during a session from our library staff and a reimagining of a library system here with satellite branches, all that kind of stuff. And I wonder if this would be an opportune time to seek some state dollars to really create that system in our community to make our library a little bit more accessible for different pockets of our community. It would also be an opportunity to do some capital project improvements to our current library facilities. We hear that too, or I hear that as from constituents as well. So I just want to throw the library in there as maybe a possibility as well. But I thank you for your work and thank you for the presentation today.
Councilmember Palmer.
Yeah, I'll just be real quick. I've been on the bonding, helping with that. And one of the things I've been most impressed with is our state legislative people and the feedback that they've given us on what works, what doesn't work, and how they advocate and really work hard for Rochester. And that goes across for every one of our legislative people. And it's a tough job, and they're out there pitching for Rochester, and they're doing their best. So I just want to make sure everybody understands that too.
Great discussion. Thanks, everybody. Do you have
No,
what you
appreciate
need
it.
to get us to the June meeting? All right. Item H2, approval of out-of-state travel and training. This is an item pulled by Councilmember Palmer.
Yeah, I'll move to approve. Thank you.
You have the floor.
One of the reasons I'm voting to approve it is that it's all within the mayor's budget, and I think that's a big item for me. But I do have some questions, and city attorney, if you can help me out with my questions. The police department gets a gift. It comes to city council and we vote on that. Is there a reason we do that?
Council Member Palmer, council members, Council President Schubring. Yes, as a best practice, we try to assure that any departments who are receiving any gifts of significance, that is formally approved through a council process.
So then my next question is, if there's a group that wants me to go someplace and they want to give the pay for it, does that have to then go through the city council to be accepted? Why not?
I would want to say yes, though I imagine you have a hypothetical or not so much a hypothetical in mind. So it'd probably be better for me to address a specific scenario than a general.
Well, I want to keep it general.
Sure.
Okay. Because last year we didn't vote for anybody to go anywhere extra. It all was within budget, I'm assuming. I know that for a fact. The city clerk sent that to us when I asked Mr. Parrish for it.
Sure, and I'm trying to catch up with the line of questioning and how you might be thinking about this. Maybe one distinction that may be important is the difference between a gift to an individual versus a gift to the city. So the scenarios where we're formally accepting a gift to a department, we are receiving that gift on behalf of the city. There could, in theory, be other situations where an individual, assuming no conflict question, of course, may be receiving a gift that wouldn't be viewed formally as a gift to the city.
So the question I guess I'm asking is if somebody says, I want Palmer to come speak to our group and we're going to give him this X amount of money, do I run that as a check to the city, or do I run it to me as a city and have us accept it, or do we not?
I think we do not. I think I'm understanding your question. We do not, because that would not be viewed as a gift to the city as an entity. We would encourage you to have that conversation with potentially administration or with me, just to assure again that there's no conflict in play.
So, but we do have a rule that I can't accept anything more than $5. It has to be $5 or less for conflict of interest, right?
From an interested party. So some caveat to that.
Okay. So you understand what I'm asking? Kind of.
I believe I do generally.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion on this item? So there's a motion on the floor to approve out-of-state travel and training. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. H3, City Council Travel and Training Budget. Councilmember Palmer.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I'm not trying to make this personal, but to me, we as city council members work within a budget. We want our staff to work within a budget. I want us to stay on a budget, and I will not be supporting going outside the budget for travel. I personally pay for a lot of stuff I do myself, and everybody's well aware that you can pay for it yourself if you want to go over that budget amount. So that's my statement.
Further discussion, Councilmember Keen.
Yeah, I had a staff question just on, we're doing this, allowing 2 of the 7 people in there to go over their limits. It makes sense to me because they're newer people, they're going to these different trainings. But are we also, are we assuming that we're staying within the overall 7-person budget? Or is there an assumption that this vote would allow us to go this dollar amount over our overall budget?
President, Councilmember Keen, I don't know that there was that level
Yeah.
of detail put to the review.
That's what I would say. We probably didn't do that level of it, but my assumption was that this was a matter of disaggregation, that it was the individual things and we weren't going to go over our overall. But then I didn't see any sort of controls in place to make sure that didn't happen.
I think that's a fair assessment.
I would support this today, but I guess I would like to think that if this council goes over their overall amount and I don't know how to address this, could the staff have to manage that? Because then I think we should either have to use contingency or not support that. So that's how I would take this vote.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Fredericks.
Can I contribute my training money to these gentlemen if they want to further their knowledge in these said subjects? Is that possible?
I think that's what this would do, and it would allow you to then to stay under the budget if you were, or others that have not fully use the funding, you know, are gonna.
Councilmember Miller does a great job educating me on things. If he's gonna go take things in and brings it back, I mean, that's good. So he's very motivated to go out and do a lot of different things. So is Councilmember Doring. I don't have the leisure, I don't have the time to get away very easily. So I'm just gonna be frank, I'm not gonna use my training money. I stay within the city limits here 24/7. So.
In that case, we would not bring forward a budget amendment. You would be under budget and this would be fine.
So, to Councilmember Frederick's line of questioning, if, let's say I went over my travel budget, would we see that come back to us or under Councilmember Frederick's scenario, only if we go above our $15,000 travel budget would it come to us?
Your Honor, in any case that you're gonna go above your 1/7, you would
Yeah,
have to bring that forward.
The
to
individual,
council. Yes.
okay. Councilmember Palmer.
Well, under Mr. Keene's proposal, in January, I should sign up for $15,000 worth of travel and everybody else would be out of travel money. And the other side of this is, what I'm trying to say is I'm a chamber member, I pay for that myself. I go to a chamber event, I pay for that myself. Because I pay for something to myself, or I go to travel to Duluth to go to a seminar, that doesn't mean it's my privilege to do that, but I'm also trying to save the city money. And so my take on this is when you go to do an educational event, I look at the seminars and I look at the National League of Cities and I don't see a class that I would benefit from. And so I don't attend those. And so I think from a leadership perspective from the city, if you want to say it that way, we tell everybody they need to work within a budget. I still think we need to have that be the message to the staff.
Further discussion on this item. Is there a motion? Councilmember Keen.
Again, further discussion, if Councilmember Palmer brought back a 15,000, we wouldn't approve it, and so it wouldn't go anywhere. So, I mean, I think what we're dealing with is we put something in place in 2024 addressing a certain problem. We probably didn't think it all the way through. I still think this is kind of a non-issue because I don't think at the council level, we'll go over our numbers based on what I see as the normal behaviors of this. So I think we're okay approving these individually. But again, if we got, I could foresee a problem where Council President Schubert comes up near the end of the year and says, oh, I'm going to go to this thing. And we say, no, we're out of money. And he goes like, how did that happen? Well, we gave it away to other people. And those are the kind of ugly things, but it's based on poorly thought out things we're doing. We were reacting to somebody spending too much of the budget before we passed rules, and now we're dealing with what the outcomes could be. I think we're still in good shape as far as the overall 7-person budget, and that's why I think we'll go forward with that, with this discussion that staff knows that we don't imply that we're going over the 7-person budget with this. That's my understanding of it.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Councilmember Wall.
That would have been my impression too, that we are within budget if we stay within the 15,000. I agreed with reducing the budget by half so that we could present a better package to the community. But I also understand that by doing that, we absolutely took any opportunity for any member, old or new, of the council to attend a National League of Cities function. I did attend one of those functions. I'm glad I was there. I will never go back. I thought it was valuable to see how that is run and what might possibly be for us. That may be true of these 2 council members. I don't know. But I don't believe we should take away every opportunity for them to attend the National League of Cities event at least once. And I too would want to stay within that 15,000 that we approved.
Is there a motion, Councilmember, is there a motion on this item? Not
Yeah,
yet?
sure.
Go ahead.
I will move to approve Councilmember Doring to exceed 2147 annual travel and training allowance by approximately 859, and Councilmember Miller to exceed annual allocation by approximately 1117.98.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Wall, seconded by Councilmember Keen. Any further discussion? Councilmember Doring.
I plan to abstain from this vote.
Uh, Thank you.
Yeah.
Any further discussion?
I just would add, I appreciate the opportunity to have this discussion. I think it's important, and I appreciate the context as well. There are events that I pay for as well to attend locally that I don't feel like are always city representation. But I think in these larger conferences, attending the League of Minnesota Cities new council member training was very valuable. In Plymouth, to just meet colleagues, hear about the functioning of the city, be more effective in this role. I've heard positive comments from both Councilmember Wall and the mayor about the value of National League of Cities, and also the League of Minnesota Cities event in Duluth. I feel like in many ways this is a decision that's impacted because of prior council action, and here we are living with it, and maybe would make a different decision today. And I appreciate that my colleagues are willing to support variation, particularly in this new start of a term. And I look forward to representing the city at those places, should this motion pass. I guess perhaps there's a way that I evaluate other alternatives to be able to go myself. I do find this to be valuable. And I'm grateful for the opportunity earlier this cycle to have had council support in applying for Smart Growth America's Champions Institute, which had no cost to the city and is a similar format. But I've learned a lot, and I look forward to bringing back some of those pieces of information about our complete streets policy. So again, some things cost the city money, some things don't. And I think that from my experience, there is great value in my interactions with meeting other council members, other mayors, in differing settings, and the information that we can bring back here to this council and to the community.
Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Abstentions?
I abstain.
Passes 5-1 with 1 abstention. Moving on to ordinance first readings, Mr. Spindler Craig.
Thank you, Mr. President. Item J1, an ordinance rezoning approximately 55.48 acres of land located west of Broadway Avenue North, east of East River Road Northeast, south of 44th Street Northeast, and north of 41st Street Northeast from LI Light Industrial to SI Special Industrial, and amending ordinance number 4478, known as the Unified Development Code of the City of Rochester, Minnesota. Moving on to one second reading, item K1, an ordinance annexing to the City of Rochester approximately 28.84 acres of land located east of 60th Avenue Northwest and approximately 500 feet south of King Arthur Road Northwest, identified by PIN number 073833.
Is there a motion on this?
Move approval.
Second.
Who was the move approval?
Either one, take your pick.
Doring.
Doring. Councilmember Doring has moved the item, and Councilmember Wall has seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Moving on to other business. Our first item on other business is I'd invite a motion to recess the council meeting for a meeting of the Rochester Economic Development Authority.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Miller, seconded by Councilmember Fredericks. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. The motion carries. I'll now call to order the Rochester Economic Development Authority meeting for May 19th, 2025. And our first item is to approve the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
So move.
It's moved by Councilmember Wall, seconded by Councilmember Fredericks. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. We have one public hearing on our agenda. It is the Economic Development Plan and Tax Increment Financing Plan for City Walk Apartments. And I believe, Mr. Johnson, you will be presenting this item.
Yeah, thank you, President Schubring, council members. Tonight before us, we have a public hearing and a request to approve an economic development plan for Economic Development District number 85 and a tax increment financing plan for the redevelopment tax increment financing district number 85-1. So this project consists of 5 parcels located at the intersection and corner of 2nd Street Southwest and 6th Avenue Southwest. The project proposal is a 13-story, 340-unit, highly amenitized and high-density housing. I think when we're looking for density of housing, this location makes a ton of sense. It's obviously across the intersection from where Mayo's Bold Forward Unbound project's expanding to. It's also about 60 yards away from where there's going to be a future high-frequency transit station right across the street. Other benefits of the project is the site currently houses some very underutilized and some vacant buildings. In order for us to request a redevelopment district, the owner had to conduct a blight study. The study considered all of the current structures on the building to be structurally substandard. So this is revitalizing that corner, bringing it to a much higher and better use. We've spent a considerable amount of time this evening talking about intersections. One of the other benefits of this project is it is going to improve this intersection. Right now, when you turn south going on 6th Avenue, you enter sort of a blind merge into that lane where you have to look backwards to see if there's traffic coming. So we'll improve the safety, vehicular safety, as well as the pedestrian safety by making access going north across 2nd Street or east across 6th Avenue more safe for pedestrians. The other, I think, unique facet or creative facet of this project is we know that we need more housing. We know we need both market rate housing, but we also need affordable housing. In order to make the numbers work on this project, it was really, really difficult because it's on thin margins already to incorporate affordable housing into the 340 units. So what we did is we worked with the current owner of those sites. He happens to also own an apartment complex to the east and an apartment complex directly to the south. So through the negotiations, we actually came to terms and agreement to put those, what are now naturally occurring affordable housing, into the county's 4D program, which ensures affordability for the next 20 years. So it'll be two cycles of 10-year renewal cycles into the county's program. When I was looking through the Maxfield study, it indicated the vulnerability of naturally occurring affordable housing, especially in areas like this that are receiving or seeing economic revitalization with Mayo's project, with infrastructure improvements in the Link Rapid Transit project. So it's only going to be more difficult to have affordable housing along this corridor. So what Maxfield said is many of these older developments are vulnerable to redevelopment due to their age, modest rents, and deferred maintenance. So by them committing to a 20-year process, that gives us a longer ownership horizon and incentivizes more updates and more investment into those properties long term. A couple of other things that I want to mention is we often talk about TIF project and development projects, and I think we feel like they're occurring much more rapidly than they maybe are. So also in the Maxfield study, it said that 74% of the market rate rental development in the DMC area occurred during the last decade. So there's actually been no new development of market rate units that has happened since 2020. The exception to that would be the former YMCA development, but that's not fully constructed yet, so those units haven't come online. The only other project that we approved was a mixed income project. That would be the Brick, which that development assistance was approved in 2021. A couple of other just TIF-related items, since it's been a while since we've relooked at where we're currently standing with TIF. So our current percentage of TIF compared to our overall tax capacity in 2024 was 4.5%. We pulled 9 other comparable cities. Some of them are cities in comparable size. Some of them are just cities more located proximity to Rochester. The average over a 5-year span of those 9 municipalities was 4.5%. So we're right in the mid-range of other municipalities. They also range from 1% from St. Cloud percentage of tax capacity all the way up to about 11% for St. Louis Park. So I'd say we're still in a very healthy spot in terms of our overall TIF commitment. Another fact that I just want to touch on really quick, and then we'll open it up to the public hearing, is that we did look and we anticipate 7 TIF projects to come in line in about the next 3 years, or in about 3 years. And that'll be about the time that if this TIF district's approved, that we'll actually be collecting increment on City Walk. And those 7 TIF projects would account for about $103 million in total market value. So in about 3 years, we'll be decertifying 7 projects with a value of about $130 million. So I think that's another key point to add. With that, I'll open it up to questions in the public hearing.
Councilmember Palmer.
I just want to clarify something. You said to the east, they own the apartment buildings. Did you mean to the west? Is it the 3-story apartment building?
Yeah, I think that was my dyslexia. I meant west. They own the apartment building to the west and then the apartment building to the south.
Both of those are owned and they will be staying in the, for the county.
Correct. It
I mean,
accounts for about 76 units. Yep.
Thank you. Sorry.
Mr. Johnson, is there an applicant for this project or?
Yes, we have, so Justin Fincher with Ruder Walton, who is one of the equity development firms, is in the audience right there.
Okay. So, Mr. Belch, what's your name, Mike? I'm sorry.
Mr. Fincher.
Mr. Fincher. So if you want to step forward, you have 10 minutes to discuss the project, and then after the public hearing, we'll invite you back for another 5 minutes. And you don't have to use it all.
That's a threat.
Yeah.
No.
No, I don't think I will, but thank you, Council President, council members. My name is Justin Fincher, Vice President of Development at Reuter Walton. I did not prepare a formal presentation. I was looking to Josh for that, so I think he's done a great job. It's been great working with city staff to date on this project. So Reuter Walton is the proposed buyer developer for this project. We couldn't be more excited about the opportunity, about the location. I don't have to tell you all, there's a lot of interesting things going on in Rochester, and we're just excited to be able to potentially add to the mix. So our project in total is 350 units, 200, sorry, I just need to read the notes here. So in total, we have 250 market rate apartment units, and then 90 what we're calling short-term rental units, for a total of 340 units. In addition to that, we do have structured underground parking, and we have approximately 264 parking stalls. In total, we plan to break ground ideally by the end of this year or maybe early next year, and then turn over the project within a 24-month period. And from there, we would start our lease up and stabilization period. So that's really the project in a nutshell. As Josh alluded to, we have a whole host of amenities. So this is market rate, premier project, where our amenities range from like work from home units. We have community spaces. We have like gaming centers. We have a rooftop lounge and private dining area for residents. Just kind of a whole host of items to cater to the patrons. So
Great.
Thank you.
We will invite you back after the public hearing. This is a public hearing. If you wish to be heard on this item, please step forward. This is a public hearing. If you wish to be heard on this item, please step forward. Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing and invite Mr. Fletcher to come back up. Oh, and if you have any closing comments, and if you don't, then we will go right into questions. Well, come forward because we have questions already.
Okay.
And I'm going to start, actually, I know Councilmember Palmer is on the queue, but you mentioned the number of units, the 350. Does that include the natural occurring units in the 3-story apartment to the west and the one to the south?
No, that does not. And Josh, if you want to clarify that statement as to how many units are affordable that are not included in the redevelopment too.
Yeah, thank you, President Schubring, City Council members. So it's actually, and I believe it's 340 units of total market rate. And then the 76 units are actually a partner of the development, which will have a separate development agreement with them. And I should have also stated that, this is, tonight, the resolution is for the TIF plan and TIF district, and we'll be coming back with a subsequent development assistance agreement, which we're working with Justin Fincher and his development team. So the 76 is not inclusive of the 340. So we're at over 400 units of housing that we're talking about.
Just to clarify, so are the 76 within the district though?
Oh, I apologize.
No, I didn't ask that, so
Okay.
you don't have to apologize.
Okay, good. They are not. So the district boundary is just going to be the alleyway out into the streets because it does include some street improvements, and then basically the site that you see in front of you there.
Okay,
That'll
got
be
it.
TIF district.
Got it. Councilmember Palmer, go ahead.
I've got kind of a theme, and one of the themes is that you have 264 parking spots. If you have the BRT running in front of your apartment building, you're so close to Mayo Clinic that you're within walking distance of a tunnel to the subway system, why are you putting parking in?
Great question, Councilmember Palmer. This has been a point of conversation for our entire team. We actually, believe it or not, there was actually less parking on this proposed development before we got involved. And the reality is that we have lenders and investors that need to invest in this project, and they have certain requirements for parking ratios as it relates to market rate developments. And so that's really what you're seeing here is a marketability concern. But we are with you, like that the BRT is, we view it as an amenity to the project, and we really hope that our residents will utilize that to its full capacity.
So in that answer, are you telling me that the bank or your investors are requiring you to have that many spots, or is that the driving force?
Currently that's the driving force, and it's a marketability concern as well. So we have, I mentioned earlier, we have market rate apartment units, but we also have the short-term rentals. And so between those two uses, we do see that there will be need for those parking stalls.
So one last question. If we decided as a city not to allow parking in that spot, would your bank not fund it, or would they say, well, okay?
But more than likely, they would not fund it.
Even if you have ramps at both ends and that they can ride on the BRT to get to their car that's at the ramps?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Keen.
Yeah, this is more questions for staff, but I'm trying to understand this. There's the new building going up, the TIF district is the new building, but then you're bringing in this idea of the other two buildings as naturally occurring affordable housing. That's nothing to do with the business in front of us tonight, or that's just an interesting fact?
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Keen. I guess I'd put it into the interesting fact category. We think that it's an amenity, it's an additional negotiation discussion point, but they are two separate agreements. So there'll be a development agreement for the naturally occurring affordable housing, and then there'll be a development assistance agreement for the actual TIF district. But we look at them encompassing one project because both are selling points to us.
Thank you, Councilmember Keen, for saying what I had in my mind when I asked my question.
All right, but I'm still trying to understand that, so when this market rate comes forward, do we have a TIF policy that says, is the TIF based on these public amenities that are in the streets, or is it, what is the public good that I'm going to be assessing this on? It's market rate.
Yeah, I would say the public good. I mean, right now, if you look at the tax generation of those 5 parcels, it's about $69,000 annually. Once the project gets developed, it's estimated to be valued at $86 million, which will generate over $1.3 million annually in taxes. Now, I understand that, it's a TIF district, so it has to run the term of the TIF district in order for those property taxes to then come back on the tax roll. But like all of our TIF projects, it still needs to meet the but-for test. But for this assistance, we don't see this corner developing into such a high and intense use. I'd say that, looking at the Maxfield study, we still have a shortage of about 3,336 market rate units. That's Olmsted County wide, but about 95% of those are projected to be in Rochester over the next 10 years. Like I said, we haven't had a market rate housing development actually open in the last 5 years, and we're halfway through the decade. So I don't think that but for the but-for test, that this project would happen.
Okay, that's the discussion I wanted to have. I mean, I'm good with what's in front of us tonight, setting up a district, but this idea of the but for. It bothers me because I'm afraid we've gotten into a cadence where like it becomes part of the income stream of doing this. And that shouldn't, it just shouldn't be. And when we come back with this but for, I don't want it to be us saying like, yeah, they told us they can't do it without it. I want to see some real assessment that this project doesn't work without this. And I don't want it just to be from what the developer gives. I mean, we hire, I believe it's Baker Tilly, and I really want to make sure that if they're, I mean, I'm just not buying into this thing that said, oh, there's this new increment, we need to give it to them. It's like, no, that's because they're generating taxes. So let's make sure I mean, I thought we had a policy that said we would give this much TIF based on the amount of affordable housing or the amount of this or that. And now it seems like we've just gotten into like, oh no, it's part of the deal because look at how much they generate. I've had people tell me that like, no, that's mine, that I've raised those taxes and I'm going to use it to pay for it. And it's not the but for test. It's like, no, that's how business works in Rochester. And I don't want to see it go that way. Thanks.
Councilmember Wall.
So thank you, Councilmember Keen. I think that you perhaps more eloquently said some things that I am feeling. I have nothing against City Walk project. I think that looks like a really great project and will be wonderful for Rochester. But we keep putting projects in TIF districts. And if I can go back, Mr. Johnson, did I hear you correctly that within 3 years, we'll have $130 million of projects coming out of TIF and onto the tax rolls fully? Okay, that helps me a great deal. I asked that earlier today, and you've said it more clearly that we see light at the end of the tunnel, that there are projects that come out of this and will benefit us in the long term. But with Mr. Keen, I'm a little worried that almost every project can say, well, you know, I'm bettering this corner or this block, and because of that, I get to keep the enhanced property taxes for 15 or 20 or 25 years. That is troublesome. This is going to come back to us, sounds like a lot in the next few years as well. And then one very specific question about this project. Will it impede pedestrians and bicycles going north on 6th Avenue to downtown through the construction?
Councilmember Wall. So we'd be working, we have been working very closely with the existing construction that's going to be occurring on 2nd Street. So, I mean, this site will be pretty much self-contained. I'll let just Mr. Fincher talk about it. I don't know if we've crossed the actual phasing of construction bridge yet, but they'll be required as part of a private entity to keep sidewalks open for pedestrians and bicyclists.
Yeah, just to add to that, there's a specific comment from the planning review that we as a developer need to coordinate our traffic plan with the city of Rochester and with the surrounding construction activities. So we'll definitely make sure to monitor that.
Thank you.
Councilmember Palmer.
Josh, when we do residential, we did 15-year TIF district. And this is a 25-year. Is there a reason why we went 25? Or is this done by the, what I'm trying to say, our lawyers that look at this and say it makes it for 25 years?
Yeah, Councilmember Palmer. It's really all the above. And Councilmember Keen's point, we do have Baker Tilly analyze all these to make sure that the return on costs or the other return factors are in alignment and not, overly aggressive or asking too much. This is also commercial construction, so it's a different type of construction than your typical 5/1. It's going to last longer. It's going to feel like better quality. It's going to be higher quality aesthetically. The other thing also just to note is, in order to get to that 25 years, that 76 affordable units was really a huge consideration of that. Otherwise, without an affordability component, I don't think we would be in front of you requesting anything over 20 years of increment. The other item that I just want to note is, This City Walk has, I think, first got maybe its approval back in 2022. Project has ebbed and flowed. It's changed in density since then. But these projects take a very, very long time. So whenever we're in front of you, we're recommending very, very few of the projects that actually we're discussing in the background. Just an item of note.
So you kind of confused my issue here. In you have the 4D project, and it's a 20-year deal, and then we have TIF for 25 years. So in 21 years, they could clear the site and then apply for TIF. Would that be unbelievable?
It wouldn't be unbelievable. So the reason why it was 20 years is just because the Olmsted County cycle is on 10-year cycles.
Yep.
So we could I mean, if you are guiding us, we could request to make it 30 years. We just anticipate it's a 20-year, 5-year TIF district. A lot of times these TIF districts end prematurely. So 20 years seemed like a good range, but we're open to feedback.
Thank you.
Councilmember Doring.
Yeah, thank you for all the clarification, and I appreciate that the City Walk project itself had come before this council in 2022. Has this project received subsidy from DMC before this discussion?
Yes. So the funding that they've been allocated is from the DMC Main Street Grant, which is a deed grant that's administered by DMC. So different funding that requires different approvals, but they did receive up to $500,000, and those are primarily for those intersection and public realm improvements on the corner.
Okay. I just wanted that to kind of be on the record. And then can you talk a little bit, I appreciated Councilmember Keen's question about whether the naturally occurring affordable housing units were in the district that we would be approving this evening if we choose to do so. And I believe I heard your response as being no. And so now I'm confused by Councilmember Palmer's questions about if those naturally occurring affordable housing units went offline in 20 years, that would require an additional application to be involved in a TIF district if they were going to be developed. Do I have that straight? Did that make sense?
I think. I'll try to answer, and if I don't make sense to your question, please correct me. So one of the discussion points that we've had, so within that 20 years, we don't want, if there's an opportunity to redevelop those, but maintain the same affordability levels, we don't want to de-incentivize that. Okay. So at some point, if there were to be maybe a new TIF district created on one of those, west or south parcels, that they could redevelop those, but they would still be required to have them in the 4D program for the remaining term.
Okay, that's helpful. Just a follow-up question about the affordability unit. Component of this that's really interesting to me. Am I understanding correctly that the developer of the City Walk apartments is different than the operator of the naturally occurring affordable housing units? This is where it gets kind of
right. I'll help clarify that.
Yeah.
That's correct. So City Walk will be developed by an entity affiliated with Reuter Walden Development. The affordable, and that's the redevelopment TIF district that you're approving tonight. The affordable housing component in the 4D program is with the owner to the west and the owner to the south, which is a different LLC, a different owner entity. So
okay.
Does that clarify your
question? And those developers would, or those owners would come forward to us for a development agreement for those naturally affordable.
Yeah, we're currently working with, because the owner of those is actually the current owner of these sites. So
right. This is where it gets all confusing to me.
Yeah, so we're working with them concurrently so that we ensure that if the TIF district and TIF plan get approved and the development assistance plan gets approved, that the development agreement, we'll say, for lack of a better term, for those NOAA affordable housing projects would happen subsequently.
Okay, so it would be my hope in that, that agreement for the naturally occurring affordable housing units, that there is language in those agreements about addressing concerns of deferred maintenance, about improving those two apartment buildings as well. I have experienced visiting with residents in those apartment buildings, and they need a little work. So I would hope that that would be part of the development process as that comes forward.
Absolutely. And point taken, and we've had those discussions already. Thank you.
Any further discussion on this? Is there a motion on this item?
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the resolution approving the economic development plan for Economic Development District number 85 and TIF financing plan for redevelopment tax increment financing district 85-1 for City Walk Apartments project.
Second?
Moved by Councilmember Keen and seconded by Councilmember Palmer. Councilmember Keen?
Yeah, again, just one aside, I'm listening to these discussions and I'm not sure I'm picking up on it right, but 4D tax means what it comes down to is you have affordable housing, you pay very little tax, so TIF makes no sense for you because there's no increment. So I don't want to get them confused here, but I am getting confused listening to the discussion. I know those are not part of this discussion of the district, but I have trouble thinking of what I understand to be naturally occurring affordable housing and then having it in a program because it's supposed to be naturally occurring. When it's in a program, it's like it's government aided, which again, the words aren't working out for my mental model, but I'll just leave it at that for tonight.
Further discussion on this item, Councilmember? Oh, no, are you?
Sure, just a question, because I think we've had some bit of discussion about the length of the district. Mr. Johnson, you mentioned some come out prematurely. Could you just clarify why they would come out prematurely? Because it's odd phrasing. They collect the increment faster.
Yep.
Correct.
Yeah, it all depends on the acceleration of the estimated market value.
Sure.
So if the market value, the project is so successful, the market value increases more than anticipated throughout that 25 years, the district could meet its obligation. So it's either 25 years or the total amount of increment that's generated, whichever factor is met first.
Thanks for that clarification. And with a building like this, I guess just what is the useful life as you're projecting depreciation, or how you're thinking about a building of this quality? How long might that last?
Councilmember Miller, that's a fantastic question. And I would want to get back to you with the correct answer, but well over 50 years.
Okay. So we're getting a much appreciated value for at least half, perhaps longer, of this building. And I guess my follow-up question was for Mr. Johnson. You mentioned the Baker-Tilly analyses that happen on projects like these. Will we see that at some point?
Yeah, Councilman Mueller, we're always happy to share those if you'd find them helpful. We, we'll just have to figure out the best method that you would like to receive it. Yep.
Okay. I guess I've gotten a question today as this has come up. Just why is the city giving money, right? In the long-term interest of the city, these kinds of projects can be economically beneficial once we pass that period and collect a much higher tax valuation that wouldn't have naturally developed on its own without this funding. Is that true? Is that a good way to think about it, right? I mean, there is long-term value for the community. We forego an immediate tax benefit.
Multiple benefits, but I can tell Deputy City Administrator
Steinhauser,
wants to
go ahead.
Sure, thank you, Council President Schubring, members of the council. So I just want to, I was going to jump in and say that, right, that the but-for test, I appreciate the concern. I really want to share with this council how much vetting is done. These projects, in this case, I could go back a couple of years, but over the course of generally 6 to 12 months, there's a lot of vetting with attorneys, accountants, testing against the state legislation to make sure we are in compliance, and truly understanding that but for TIF, which is last money in, it's the last money in on a project, the project wouldn't happen. And that the tax generated helps to make the project happen and then comes back to the taxing body, and it's not just to the city council. The county receives funding, the school district receives funding that otherwise would not be realized without a project like this. But what you really need to understand is the due diligence that is done here and the fact that TIF is last money in, it has been vetted through countless legal processes, legislative process, as well as the financial assessment. And the other thing I do want to say is you approved a revision to the TIF policy just a couple of meetings ago, and that has given us really great guidance. When does a 15-year TIF make sense, a 20-year TIF, or a 25-year TIF? And that is the guide that Josh applied in bringing forward this project.
So there is a motion on the table, and I really appreciate Councilmember Miller's line of questioning, but it's kind of like we are supposed to be discussing our vote now. So
Okay.
if there are no further questions, did you want to continue with?
No, I just appreciate the clarification. I feel like this is a complex process, and we get additional insight and clarification, and I think it's just, I want to make sure that the community understands how we compare to peer cities, that we're not over leveraging ourselves. So I appreciate the comparison to peer cities, and I also appreciate the context of projects that are coming out prematurely from the TIF timeline and where that balances us and the long-term benefit. And I appreciate Ms. Steinhauser's reminder that tax valuation beyond the city's benefit to the county and the school district is also part of this consideration. So
Great.
no more
Thank you.
questions.
Further discussion? Seeing none, there's a motion on the table. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Passes unanimously. Is there a motion to adjourn the EDA at two?
Just a second. Oh, new business.
Oh, you have new business.
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead, Councilmember Palmer.
Question about Sherman Associates. We had an agreement. When does that agreement run out?
End of June, so end of June.
So June 30th, if we don't have a deal, it's done.
That is correct, yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other business?
Sorry.
No, that's
Thank
okay.
you.
Motion to adjourn.
There's been a motion to adjourn by Councilmember Miller,
Second.
seconded by Councilmember Palmer. All in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. Thank you. We are now reconvened as the city council, and I'd entertain a motion to accept the findings of the EDA.
So move. Second.
Who moved that? Okay, Councilmember Wall, seconded by Councilmember Palmer. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Moving on to our other business in the council agenda, we have Mr. Spindler Craig, who is going to set up our executive session.
Thank you, Mr. President. Consistent with the posted agenda, I need to make a record leading to your motion to move into closed session. Litigation has been threatened by attorneys representing several businesses that have paid or incurred fees related to transportation infrastructure serving properties that they owned or once owned in the city of Rochester. The city's responses to this threatened litigation should be informed by a confidential briefing of the Rochester Common Council, by outside counsel, and me as the city's counsel on these matters under the attorney-client privilege. So under Minnesota Statute Section 13D.05 Subdivision 3B, I respectfully request the presiding officer to make a motion to close this meeting to the public. To more clearly describe the subject of that closed meeting, the targets of the threats of litigation relate to publicly made decisions by the council, including 1, the adoption of a transportation improvement district policy in 2004, 2, the adoption of the West Side Traffic Improvement District in 2006, and 3, the adoption of development agreements or amendments to them in public council meetings. The closed meeting I request will not include action by the council to settle or refuse to settle the threatened claims, but will be limited to the consequences of those 3 types of decisions. Absolute confidentiality is necessary so that the members of the council could make an informed assessment of the available legal options and to provide guidance to us as the city's legal counsel on these matters regarding some of those options. The need to have confidential discussions with specially appointed counsel and to discuss strategies regarding the threatened litigation outweighs the purposes of the open meeting law and is permitted by the attorney-client privilege and Section 13D.05 Subdivision 3B of that law.
On the grounds just stated by the city's appointed legal council, I hereby move to close the Rochester Common Council meeting under section 13D.05 subdivision 3 B and the attorney-client privilege to discuss the threatened litigation as described more specifically by Mr. Spindler Craig in the request that he just made. With this motion, we would adjourn the meeting to room 104 at 9:45.
President, I'm sorry, if you would just take a second.
Yes,
and a
that's
vote
what I
on
was just
this.
going to do.
I'm
Is there a second to?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Keen. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Thank you.
Recording stopped.